Millionaire shows up unannounced at his employee's house. But he never imagined what he'd find. Subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The November rain hammered against the windshield of the black Mercedes S-Class as it rolled through the cracked streets of Riverside, a neighborhood on the forgotten edge of Indianapolis that most people only saw from the highway. Logan Wells gripped the leather steering wheel with both hands, his knuckles pale against his tan skin, a tan maintained year-round by vacations to the Cayman Islands and weekly sessions at an exclusive spa downtown. At 52, Logan cut an imposing figure, 6'2", with silver-streaked dark hair combed back perfectly, sharp gray eyes that could dissect a balance sheet in seconds, and a jaw that seemed permanently set in determination. He wore a charcoal Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people in this neighborhood made in a month, though he'd left his tie in the car and unbuttoned his collar in a half-hearted attempt to look less conspicuous. It wasn't working. The GPS on his dashboard announced his arrival with a cheerful ping that felt obscene given his surroundings. Logan pulled to a stop in front of 847 Maple Street, a small single-story house that seemed to sag under the weight of too many hard winters. The siding was a faded yellow that might have been cheerful once, decades ago, but now peeled away in strips like sunburned skin. The small front porch tilted slightly to the left, its wooden steps worn smooth in the centers where countless feet had climbed. A rusty chain-link fence enclosed a yard where brown grass poked through patches of mud, and a child's plastic tricycle lay on its side near a dead rosebush. Logan sat in his car for a moment, engine running, heat blasting. Through the rain-streaked window, he could see a dim light glowing behind threadbare curtains. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably Margaret, his executive assistant, wondering where he'd disappeared to in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. He ignored it. This was insane. He knew it was insane. Logan Wells, founder and CEO of Wells Tech Solutions, a company valued at $800 million, did not make house calls. He had people for that. Hell, he had people who had people for that. When employees had problems, HR handled it. When HR couldn't handle it, they were replaced with HR that could. Simple, clean, efficient. But Erica Morrison wasn't a simple problem. Logan killed the engine and stepped out into the rain, immediately regretting not bringing an umbrella. Cold water soaked through his expensive suit jacket as he jogged toward the porch, his Italian leather shoes splashing through puddles. Up close, the house looked even worse. Paint chips littered the porch floor. One window was covered with cardboard and duct tape. The doorbell hung by a single wire. He knocked instead, 3 sharp raps that echoed louder than he'd intended. For a long moment, nothing. Logan was about to knock again when he heard it. A child's shriek of laughter, quickly shushed, followed by hurried footsteps. The door opened 6 inches, held by a tarnished chain lock, and a woman's face appeared in the gap. Mr. Wells. Erica Morrison looked nothing like the woman who worked on the 5th floor of his building. At 36, she'd always struck Logan as unremarkable in the way that reliable people often were. Medium height, medium build, with light brown hair always pulled back in a practical ponytail and minimal makeup. She dressed in neat but inexpensive business casual. Khakis, simple blouses, sensible flats. She smiled politely at everyone, kept her desk organized, met every deadline, and never caused drama. For 8 years, she'd been the kind of employee managers dream about. Invisible until you needed her, then absolutely indispensable. The woman staring at him now looked like she'd aged a decade in the 3 months since he'd last seen her. Her face was thinner, almost gaunt, with dark circles under her hazel eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. Her hair hung loose and damp around her shoulders, and she wore faded jeans with holes in the knees and an oversized gray sweatshirt that had been washed so many times the original color was anyone's guess. Her feet were bare, and Logan noticed her toenails were painted a chipped bright pink, probably done by small, enthusiastic hands. What are you doing here?" Her voice cracked slightly, and Logan saw her grip tighten on the doorframe. "May I come in?" He tried to sound gentle, though gentle had never been his forte. "We need to talk about your employment status." Erica's face went pale. "I can explain. I've been meaning to call. Things have been." She stopped, closed her eyes, took a breath. "Can you give me just one more week? Please? I can come back next Monday, I promise. I'll make up the hours, Erica. Logan held up a hand. I'm not here to fire you. I just want to understand what's going on. A crash from inside the house made them both jump, followed by a child's wail and another voice yelling. Mason broke the tower. Mama. Mason broke it. Erica's expression shifted from fear to resignation. She closed her eyes again, and when she opened them, Logan saw something there he recognized from his own mirror on bad days: defeat. I suppose you should come in, she said quietly, and slid the chain lock free. The door opened into a living room that couldn't have been more than 12 feet square. The first thing Logan noticed was the smell, not unpleasant, but completely foreign to him. A combination of chicken noodle soup, baby powder, and that specific scent of hand sanitizer and children's grape-flavored medicine. The second thing he noticed was the noise. 3 small children occupied the cramped space like puppies in a too-small pen, all talking at once. 2 identical boys with shaggy brown hair were engaged in mortal combat over a pile of wooden blocks in the center of the worn carpet. They looked to be about 4 years old, both wearing mismatched pajamas, one with dinosaurs, one with trucks, even though it was 2 in the afternoon. A little girl sat near the window, her hair in lopsided pigtails tied with rubber bands, carefully coloring in a tattered coloring book with crayons worn down to nubs. She wore a pink dress that was too small, the hem riding up to show her belly, and her feet were bare like her mother's. The furniture was a mismatched collection that looked like it had been rescued from various curbs. A sagging brown couch covered with a sheet, a coffee table scarred with cup rings and crayon marks, a TV stand that held an old box television. The walls were bare except for children's drawings taped up with scotch tape, their edges curling. In one corner, a space heater glowed orange, fighting a losing battle against the draft seeping through gaps around the windows. All 3 children froze when they saw Logan, their eyes going wide. The boys stopped mid-scuffle, one's hand still gripping the other's pajama collar. The girl's crayon stopped mid-stroke. They stared at this tall stranger in his expensive suit with the mixture of curiosity and wariness that children reserve for anything unusual in their world. Mama, the little girl said softly. Who's that man? Erica closed the door and moved quickly to position herself between Logan and the children, a protective instinct so automatic it was clearly second nature. Kids, this is Mr. Wells. From Mama's work. He's just visiting for a minute. She turned to Logan, keeping her voice low. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were coming. The house is a mess, and Erica, Logan interrupted, his voice rougher than he intended. He was still processing what he was seeing, his brain trying to reconcile the efficient employee he thought he knew with this reality. Are all 3 of them yours? The question hung in the air between them. One of the boys, the one in dinosaur pajamas, chose that moment to burst into tears. He broke my tower. I was building it for 3 whole days, and he knocked it down. It was an accident, the other boy protested, his own eyes welling up. I said sorry. The little girl abandoned her coloring and ran to wrap her arms around her mother's leg, burying her face in Erica's jeans. And Logan Wells, master of the boardroom, closer of impossible deals, a man who'd once stared down a hostile takeover attempt without blinking, stood in that cramped living room and had absolutely no idea what to do. Erica's hands trembled as she knelt down to the crying boy in dinosaur pajamas, pulling him into her arms while simultaneously reaching out to touch the other boy's shoulder. Mason, I know you're upset. And Liam, I know it was an accident. We'll rebuild it together, okay? Better than before. She kissed the top of Mason's head, his sobs already subsiding into hiccups against her shoulder. The little girl remained attached to her leg like a barnacle, peeking out at Logan with one eye. Logan stood frozen in the middle of the room, acutely aware that he was dripping rainwater onto the threadbare carpet. He felt massive in this small space, like a bull that had somehow wandered into a dollhouse. Everything about this situation was wrong. Not morally wrong, but wrong in the sense that it existed completely outside his understanding of the world. In Logan's universe, problems were presented in PowerPoint slides with clear data points and actionable solutions. 3 crying children, an exhausted single mother, a house held together by duct tape and determination. This didn't fit into any framework he knew. I'm sorry, Erica said again, her voice muffled against Mason's hair. She looked up at Logan with something between embarrassment and defiance. This is why I couldn't come in. This is why I've been absent. You have triplets. Logan said it as a statement, though his brain was still catching up. I didn't know you had triplets. Nobody at work knew. Erica gently extracted herself from Mason, who had calmed enough to rejoin his brother in examining the scattered blocks. The little girl still clung to her mother's leg. I kept my personal life private. I didn't think it was relevant to my job performance. For 8 years. Logan heard the accusation in his own voice and winced internally. You worked for my company for 8 years and never mentioned you had 3 children? Erica's jaw tightened. She reached down and gently peeled the little girl off her leg, crouching to look her in the eyes. Lily, sweetie, can you go play with your brothers for a few minutes? Mama needs to talk to Mr. Wells. Be good, okay? Lily nodded solemnly and padded over to the boys, who had already forgotten their fight and were rebuilding the block tower with renewed determination and an elaborate system of rules that only they understood. Erica stood and turned to face Logan fully, her arms crossed over her chest. Up close, he could see more details he'd missed at the door. A small stain on her sweatshirt that looked like grape jelly, a healing cut on her right hand, and that bone-deep exhaustion that went beyond missing a few nights of sleep. This was the exhaustion of someone who'd been running on fumes for so long they'd forgotten what a full tank felt like. They weren't relevant because I had help, Erica said quietly, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. For the first 3 years, I had help. My mother lived with me. She watched them while I worked. I could keep everything separate. Work was work, home was home. You got the employee you needed, and my kids got a mother who could pay the rent and put food on the table. It worked. What changed? Logan asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. My mother died. The words came out flat, drained of feeling through repetition. Stroke. February 14th, Valentine's Day. She was here one morning making pancakes, and by that night she was gone. Erica's eyes were dry, but Logan saw her throat work as she swallowed hard. After that, everything fell apart. I had some savings, enough to take a couple weeks off for the funeral, and 2, to figure things out. But daycare for 3 kids. She laughed, a bitter sound. Do you have any idea what that costs, Mr. Wells? Logan didn't. He'd never had to think about it. His own children, Marcus, now 30, and Diana, 27, had been raised by a rotating cast of nannies and boarding schools. Patricia had handled all those arrangements. He'd just signed the checks. I found a place, Erica continued, her words coming faster now, like a dam breaking. It wasn't great, but it was affordable. I went back to work in March. Lasted 2 weeks before Mason got sick. Really sick. Pneumonia. He was in the hospital for 5 days, and her voice cracked. I sat by his bed and watched him struggle to breathe through an oxygen mask, and all I could think about was that I'd failed them. That I'd pushed too hard, tried to do too much, and now my baby might. She stopped abruptly, pressing her hand to her mouth. The children, sensing their mother's distress through whatever mysterious radar kids possessed, looked up from their blocks. Lily stood and moved toward Erica, but the older woman held up a hand and forced a smile. It's okay, sweetheart. Mama's fine. Keep playing. Logan felt something uncomfortable stirring in his chest, an emotion he couldn't quite name. It sat somewhere between guilt and what? Sympathy? Pity? Neither word felt right. He cleared his throat. Mason recovered, obviously. Obviously. Erica's tone turned sharp. Because I stayed home with him. And then I stayed home to make sure he didn't relapse. And then Lily caught what he had, and then Liam. By the time everyone was healthy again, 2 months had passed, and I knew that HR had to be discussing my termination. That's why I've been dodging calls. I couldn't face it. I couldn't face losing the one thing that keeps us in this house, that keeps food in those kids' stomachs. She turned away from him, wrapping her arms around herself. Through the thin sweatshirt, Logan could see the sharp angles of her shoulder blades. When was the last time she'd eaten a full meal? So now you know, she said to the wall. Now you know why Erica Morrison, Employee of the Year 2 years running, dependable Erica who never missed a deadline, has been completely unreliable. Fire me if you need to. I get it. I'd fire me too. Just, can you at least process my final paycheck quickly? I need to make rent next week. Logan stood in silence, watching Mason, Liam, and Lily build their tower. They worked with intense concentration, Mason directing the placement of each block with the seriousness of an architect designing a skyscraper. Liam provided color commentary, a constant stream of chatter about how tall they could make it, whether it could reach the ceiling, if they should add a door for a princess. Lily carefully selected each block, examining it from all angles before handing it to her brothers, quality control in a pink dress. Something about the scene tugged at a memory buried deep in Logan's mind. He was 7, maybe 8, building with an expensive set of imported German blocks in the playroom of his family's estate. His father had walked in, watched for 30 seconds, and said, "That's not structurally sound. The base is too narrow. Do it again, and do it right." Then he'd left. Logan had stared at his creation, which he'd thought was rather good, and slowly, methodically, knocked it down. He'd rebuilt it according to proper engineering principles, and it had been stronger, more stable, and completely joyless. "I'm not going to fire you," Logan heard himself say. Erica spun around, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What?" "I'm not going to fire you," he repeated, more firmly this time. "But we need to figure this out. You can't keep working from a position of crisis management. It's not sustainable, for you or for them." He nodded toward the children. "I don't need charity." Erica's voice took on a hard edge, pride flaring in her exhausted eyes. "I don't need a pity party or a handout. I just need my job, Mr. Wells. I need to work. I'm good at what I do, you know I am. I can find a way to make it work again. I just need time." "How?" The question came out harsher than Logan intended, but he pressed on. "You have 3 4-year-olds and no childcare. What's your plan, Erica? Because from where I'm standing, you're drowning, and you're too stubborn to grab the life preserver." Her face flushed red. "You don't know anything about my life. You show up here in your $1,000 suit." "3,000, actually," Logan interjected, then immediately regretted it when Erica's eyes flashed with anger. $3,000 suit, she continued, her voice rising enough that the children stopped building and turned to watch. "In your fancy car, probably wondering how the other half lives. You want to know my plan? My plan is to do what I've been doing since the day these 3 came into the world. I figure it out. I wake up every morning at 5:30, and I figure it out. I stretch every dollar until it screams, and I figure it out. I go to bed exhausted and scared every single night, and then I wake up the next morning and figure it out again." Mason started to cry, set off by his mother's raised voice. Lily joined in a moment later, and Liam's bottom lip began to tremble. The dam had finally broken completely, and Erica's face crumpled. "I'm sorry," she whispered, dropping to her knees and opening her arms. All 3 children rushed to her, climbing into her lap, onto her back, wrapping themselves around her like they could shield her from the world. She held them tight, rocking slightly. "I'm sorry, babies. Mama's okay. Everything's okay." But it wasn't okay. Logan could see that clearly now. The peeling paint, the space heater struggling against the cold, the too small clothes, the generic soup simmering on a stove he could glimpse through a doorway. This wasn't okay. This was what desperation looked like when it wore a brave face and kept showing up anyway. And Logan Wells, who'd built an empire on his ability to identify problems and deploy solutions, felt something shift inside him. Not pity. Pity was distant and condescending. This was something more unsettling, more personal. This was recognition. He saw himself in Mason's determined concentration, in Lily's careful consideration, in Liam's constant questions. But more than that, he saw what he'd never had, a mother who would burn herself down to keep her children warm. "What was their father's name?" he asked quietly. Erica looked up, still holding the children. Her expression had gone carefully neutral. "Does it matter?" "It might. Ryan Morrison. We weren't married, but I took his name when I got pregnant because I thought," she laughed bitterly, "I thought we were building something. Turns out he was just passing through. When the ultrasound showed triplets instead of 1 baby, he lasted another month before I came home to a note on the kitchen table and an empty closet. Child support. He works under the table doing construction in different states. I filed, got a judgment, but you can't collect from someone who doesn't want to be found." She said it matter-of-factly, like she'd long since accepted this reality. "I haven't heard from him since before they were born. He's never even seen them." Logan's phone buzzed again in his pocket, the 3rd time since he'd arrived. The outside world was trying to pull him back. There were meetings, decisions, things that actually mattered to the bottom line. But as he looked at Erica Morrison sitting on her worn carpet, her 3 children wrapped around her like lifelines, Logan made a decision that his logical brain would question for weeks to come. "What if I told you I have a proposal?" he said. "Not charity, not a handout. A solution that lets you keep your dignity and your job, and also lets those kids have what they need." Erica's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What kind of proposal?" "I don't know yet," Logan admitted, and it was the truth. "But give me 24 hours to figure it out." "Can you do that? Can you trust me for 24 hours? The silence stretched between them, filled only with the sound of the space heater humming and the rain hammering against the windows. Finally, Erica nodded slowly, though her expression remained guarded. 24 hours, she agreed. "But Mr. Wells, whatever you're thinking, I'm not a charity case. I'm not looking for a savior. I'm just trying to survive." "I know," Logan said softly. And for the first time in a very long time, he meant it. Logan's Mercedes cut through the evening traffic on I-465, the downtown Indianapolis skyline materializing through the clearing rain like a city emerging from a dream. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, his mind racing faster than the engine beneath the hood. The leather seat held the faint dampness from his rain-soaked suit, but he barely noticed. All he could see was that cramped living room, those three pairs of eyes watching him like he was some exotic creature that had wandered into their world, and Erica's face, proud, exhausted, terrified, defiant all at once. His phone had exploded with notifications during the drive. 17 missed calls, 32 emails, 6 text messages from Margaret, each one more urgent than the last. The quarterly board meeting had started 20 minutes ago, and Logan Wells had never missed a board meeting. Not in 23 years of running Wells Tech Solutions. Not through his father's funeral, not through his own heart attack scare 5 years ago, not even during the merger talks that had almost destroyed the company. Until today, he pulled into his reserved spot in the underground parking garage of the Wells building, a gleaming 40-story glass and steel monument to his success that dominated the downtown skyline. His name was literally on the building, etched in chrome letters 12 feet high at the entrance. As he rode the private elevator to the executive floor, Logan caught his reflection in the polished doors. His suit was rumpled and still slightly damp, his hair mussed from running his hands through it repeatedly, his tie hanging loose around his neck. He looked like a man who'd been in a fight. Maybe he had been. The elevator doors opened directly into his office suite. 4,000 square feet of floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist Scandinavian furniture, and abstract art that cost more than Erica's house probably did. Margaret sat at her desk in the reception area, her perfectly manicured fingers frozen above her keyboard. At 62, she'd been with Logan since the company's early days, when they'd worked out of a renovated warehouse with folding tables and dreams of something bigger. She knew him better than almost anyone, which meant she knew immediately that something fundamental had shifted. "Logan." She stood, her gray suit immaculate, her silver hair in its signature bob. "The board is furious." Gerald called 3 times. "He's threatening." "Let them threaten." Logan walked past her into his inner office, loosening his tie completely and tossing it onto his desk, a massive slab of reclaimed wood that supposedly came from a barn in Vermont. "I need you to get me everything we have on employee benefits. Health insurance options, childcare programs, flexible scheduling policies. Everything." Margaret followed him in, her heels clicking on the bamboo floors. "This is about Erica Morrison." It wasn't a question. Margaret made it her business to know everything that happened in the company, from the C-suite to the mailroom. She'd been the one to first flag Erica's absences, though she'd advocated for patience rather than immediate termination. "Yes." Logan collapsed into his chair, suddenly aware of how tired he was. Not physically tired. He regularly worked 16-hour days without breaking a sweat. This was something different, a bone-deep weariness that came from having your worldview turned upside down and shaken hard. She has 3 children, triplets, 4 years old. She's been doing it alone since before they were born. Margaret's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "I see. No daycare. No family support. Her mother died in February." Logan pulled up his calendar on his computer, scanning the next few weeks. It was packed solid, every hour color-coded and accounted for. Meetings, calls, strategy sessions, investor dinners. His life measured out in 30-minute increments. "She's been hanging on by her fingernails, and we were about to let her go." HR was following protocol. Margaret said carefully. 3 months of unexcused absences. Protocol. Logan laughed, a harsh sound. You know what I saw today, Margaret? I saw what protocol looks like from the other side. It looks like a woman choosing between keeping her job and watching her sick kid breathe. It looks like 3-4-year-olds in a house that's falling apart because their mother is too proud to ask for help and too busy surviving to do anything but tread water. Margaret moved to the window, gazing out at the city below. From up here, Indianapolis looked clean and orderly, a grid of lights and geometry. You couldn't see the neighborhoods like Riverside, couldn't see the peeling paint and broken fences. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Logan spun his chair to face her. But I'm going to do something. We have 800 employees in this building. How many of them are one crisis away from being Erica Morrison? How many are choosing between childcare and rent? How many are burning themselves out because we've built a system that punishes people for being human? Logan, Margaret's tone held a warning. Be careful. You're talking about potentially massive changes to our operational structure. The board won't like it. The investors definitely won't like it. Our competitors will see it as weakness. I don't care. The words surprised him even as he said them. Logan Wells always cared what the board thought, what investors thought, what the market thought. His entire career had been built on caring about those things more than anything else. What's the point of being the CEO if I can't make decisions that matter? The point is maximizing shareholder value, Margaret said drily. Or so your father always told me. Logan flinched. His father, Robert Wells, had built Wells Tech from nothing, a self-made millionaire who'd clawed his way up from poverty and never forgot where he came from, though not in a sentimental way. Robert Wells remembered poverty like a soldier remembered war, something to be survived, never to be returned to, and certainly not to be romanticized. He'd raised Logan with an iron fist and an ironclad philosophy. Compassion was a luxury, sentiment was a weakness, and in business, you were either the shark or the food. Robert had died 4 years ago, and Logan had inherited not just the company, but the weight of those expectations. Be harder, be stronger, be ruthless. Anything less was a betrayal of the empire they'd built together. But in Erica's living room, surrounded by homemade drawings and hand-me-down furniture and 3 children who smiled despite having every reason not to, Logan had felt his father's ghost loosen its grip just slightly. Give me the files, he told Margaret. Benefits, policies, everything. And give me the contact information from Marcus Brennan. Margaret's eyebrows rose. The HR consultant? The one who specializes in family-friendly workplace initiatives. That's the one. I want a meeting with him tomorrow morning. Early, before the board gets wind of this and tries to shut it down. You're really doing this. Margaret studied him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You're going to stick your neck out for one employee. Not just one employee. Logan turned back to his computer, already drafting an email. This isn't about Erica specifically. It's about the fact that she's probably not the only one. It's about the fact that we've built a company culture where people are afraid to be human, afraid to have needs, afraid to admit they're struggling. That's not the kind of legacy I want to leave. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Then she said softly, Your father wouldn't have approved. I know. Logan didn't look up from his screen. But my father also died alone in a hospital room because he was too stubborn to tell anyone he was having chest pains during a merger negotiation. He prioritized a deal over his own life. And that's exactly the kind of thinking I'm trying to change. All right. Margaret moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Logan, I think this might be the most right thing you've ever done. It's also probably going to be the hardest. Are you ready for that? Logan thought about Erica's face when she talked about her mother's death, about Mason's determination as he rebuilt his block tower, about Lily's careful consideration of each piece, about Liam's endless questions. He thought about the space heater fighting the cold, the cardboard-patched window, the grape jelly stain on a worn sweatshirt. I have to be, he said simply. After Margaret left, Logan sat in his enormous office and stared at the city lights. His reflection ghosted across the window, a successful man in a successful office, surrounded by symbols of achievement. On the credenza behind his desk sat the usual executive trophies, awards, photos with politicians and celebrities, his Harvard MBA diploma, a crystal sculpture given to him by the Chamber of Commerce. There was also a family photo, professionally staged and 5 years old. Patricia stood beside him in a designer dress, her smile perfect and empty. Marcus and Diana flanked them, both tall and attractive and distant. They looked like strangers who'd agreed to pose together for a catalog shoot. Logan couldn't remember the last time he'd really looked at it. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to his recent calls. Diana's last call, 3 weeks ago, asking for money to invest in her boyfriend's startup. Marcus's last call, 2 months ago, informing Logan he'd be skipping Thanksgiving because he was going to Aspen with friends. Patricia called regularly, but their conversations rarely went beyond logistics and social calendars. When was the last time any of them had called just to talk? To ask how he was? To share something that mattered? Logan pulled up his Photos app, intending to look for something, though he wasn't sure what. The recent photos were all screenshots of presentations and documents. He scrolled back further. More work stuff. A picture of his car. A sunset from the terrace of his penthouse. He kept scrolling, months and months of images, searching for something human, something real. There, a photo from 2 years ago. Christmas morning at the house. Patricia was already dressed for the day in cashmere and pearls. Marcus was checking his phone. Diana was taking a selfie. And Logan was standing in the background, still in his robe, looking at his family like he was trying to solve a puzzle he couldn't quite figure out. Nobody was touching. Nobody was smiling at each other. They were 4 people who happened to be in the same room, counting down the minutes until they could return to their separate lives. Logan closed the app and set the phone down. His eyes burned, though he couldn't say if it was from exhaustion or something else. He thought about Erica on the floor with her children wrapped around her like they were all holding each other up. About the way Mason had stopped crying the moment his mother's arms closed around him. About Lily's solemn little face peeking out from behind Erica's leg. About Liam's constant chatter filling the small house with life. They had almost nothing, but somehow, they had everything that mattered. Logan's phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Dinner tonight? The Hendersons invited us to their box at the Symphony. You'll need to change. Your tux should be back from the cleaners. He stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back. Can't make it. Work emergency. Give my apologies. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Then reappeared. Finally, fine. I'll go alone. Again. Logan set the phone face down on his desk and pulled up a blank document. At the top, he typed, Wells Tech Family Support Initiative, Draft Proposal. Then he stared at the cursor blinking on the white screen, and he started to write. Outside his window, Indianapolis hummed with evening life. Somewhere out there in Riverside, Erica was probably putting 3 children to bed in a house that was too cold, wondering if tomorrow would be the day she finally lost everything. She'd asked him to trust her for 24 hours. Logan intended to spend every one of those hours making sure that when he showed up again, he'd have something real to offer. Not charity, not pity, but something that recognized her dignity while acknowledging her need. Something that said, you're not alone anymore, and you don't have to be a superhero to deserve help. He just had to figure out what that something was before the board, the investors, and his entire corporate structure crushed the idea under the weight of quarterly earnings reports and shareholder expectations. The cursor blinked. Logan began to type. At 6:30 the next morning, Logan sat in his office across from Marcus Brennan, a man whose reputation for transforming corporate cultures preceded him like a force of nature. Brennan was younger than Logan expected, maybe 40, with close-cropped dark hair going gray at the temples, wire-rimmed glasses, and the kind of earnest intensity that usually made Logan's teeth ache. He wore khakis and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, no tie, and carried a battered leather messenger bag that looked like it had survived several wars. Let me make sure I understand correctly, Brennan said, setting down his coffee mug. He'd declined the expensive espresso from Logan's machine in favor of regular drip coffee from the break room. You want to completely overhaul your benefit structure, implement flexible scheduling across all departments, create an on-site childcare facility, and establish an emergency family support fund. And you want to do all of this within the next 6 months. 3 months, Logan corrected. 6 months is too long. People need help now. Brennan laughed, then stopped when he realized Logan wasn't joking. Mr. Wells, do you have any idea what you're proposing? The logistical challenges alone would be enormous. The cost. I don't care about the cost. Logan pushed a folder across his desk. I had our CFO run preliminary numbers last night. Yes, it's expensive, but we're also profitable to the tune of $80 million annually. We can afford to invest in our people. It's not just about affording it. Brennan opened the folder, his eyes scanning the documents. It's about implementation. You'll need to renovate space for the childcare center, hire qualified staff, navigate licensing requirements. The flexible scheduling will require new management training, new software systems, new performance metrics. You're talking about changing the fundamental DNA of how this company operates. Good. Logan stood and moved to the window. The sun was just rising over Indianapolis, painting the glass towers in shades of gold and amber. Because the current DNA is broken, I've got 800 employees, and I'm willing to bet a significant percentage of them are struggling with the same issues. Childcare costs, aging parents who need care, health crises. We've built a system that treats people like machines. Input, output, productivity metrics. What happens when the machine has human needs? Brennan set down the papers and studied Logan with open curiosity. What happened to you? Excuse me. I've consulted with dozens of CEOs over the years, Brennan said. Usually, they call me because they're trying to improve retention numbers or recruitment statistics. It's about the bottom line. But you sound like someone who had a revelation. So I'm asking, what happened? Logan was quiet for a moment. Through the window, he could see the early morning traffic beginning to build, thousands of people heading to jobs, carrying their own invisible burdens. I visited an employee's home yesterday, a woman who's worked for me for 8 years. I thought I knew her, punctual, efficient, reliable. Turns out I didn't know her at all. She's a single mother with 4-year-old triplets. No family support, no childcare, no safety net. And when her kids got sick, she had to choose between her job and their health. She chose her kids, Brennan said quietly. Of course she did. Any parent would. But the fact that she had to choose it all, that's on me. That's on the system I've built and maintained. Logan turned back to face Brennan. You asked what happened to me. I saw myself clearly for the first time in years. I saw what my priorities had become, and I didn't like it. Brennan leaned back in his chair, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. All right, Mr. Wells. I'm in. But I need you to understand something. This is going to be hard. Your board will resist. Your investors will scream about diminished returns. Your competitors will call you soft. And some of your employees, the ones who don't have families or don't see the value in these programs, they'll resent what they perceive as special treatment for parents. Let them resent it, Logan said flatly. We're doing it anyway. There's one more thing. Brennan pulled out a tablet from his bag. Change like this can't just be about policy. It has to be about culture. That means it starts at the top. With you. You're asking your employees to trust that they can be human, that they can have needs and struggles and still be valued. But they'll only believe that if they see you doing the same thing. Logan frowned. What are you suggesting? When's the last time you took a day off, Mr. Wells? Not a vacation where you still answer emails, but an actual day where you disconnected completely. The question caught Logan off guard. He tried to remember and came up empty. I don't know. A few years, maybe. And when's the last time you left work early for a family obligation? Or came in late because of a personal appointment? I don't have family obligations, Logan said, and the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. My kids are adults. My wife handles her own schedule. Exactly. Brennan tapped his tablet screen. You're asking your employees to be vulnerable, to admit they have lives outside work. But you won't model that behavior yourself. That's a problem. If you want this culture change to stick, you need to be the example. That might mean leaving a meeting early to attend your niece's soccer game, or blocking off time for a doctor's appointment and actually going to it. Or, and I know this will sound radical, actually using the flexible scheduling you're implementing. Logan wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Brennan was right. He'd spent 20 years building a reputation as the CEO who never stopped, never slowed down, never put anything before the company. And what had it gotten him? A family he barely knew, a marriage that was more business partnership than actual relationship, and adult children who only called when they needed money. I'll work on it, he said finally. You'll need to do more than work on it. Brennan stood, gathering his materials. But this is a good start. I'll draw up a comprehensive implementation plan by the end of the week. In the meantime, I suggest you start small. That employee you visited, Erica, was it? What have you done to help her specifically? Logan grimaced. Nothing yet. I told her I'd have a proposal within 24 hours, and that deadline is, he checked his watch, in about 90 minutes. Then I suggest you get started on that. Brennan headed for the door, then paused. One more thing, Mr. Wells. This woman, Erica, be careful with her. People who've been struggling alone for a long time develop a fierce independence. She's not going to want what she perceives as charity. Whatever you offer her, make sure it respects her agency and her dignity. Make sure it's something she can accept without feeling like she's giving up a piece of herself. After Brennan left, Logan sat at his desk and pulled up the document he'd been working on all night. The Wells Tech Family Support Initiative had grown from a vague concept into a detailed proposal. But Brennan was right. The company-wide changes would take months. Erica needed help now. He picked up his phone and called Margaret. I need you to research something for me. Find me the best child care centers within 5 miles of Riverside. I want to know their rates, their availability, their qualifications. Also, get me the contact information for our health insurance broker. I want to know what it would take to add enhanced coverage for dependents, specifically for things like asthma medication and emergency care. Already done, Margaret said, and Logan could hear the smile in her voice. I emailed you the information 20 minutes ago. I also took the liberty of reaching out to a few centers. There's one called Bright Horizons Early Learning about 3 miles from Erica's address. They have 3 spots available, and they specialize in children with medical needs. They're expensive, though. Logan pulled up the email on his screen. The monthly cost made him wince, not because he couldn't afford it, but because he was realizing just how impossible these costs would be for someone making Erica's salary. Set up a tour for this afternoon. I want to see it myself before I propose anything. Logan. Margaret's voice turned serious. What exactly are you planning here? I'm planning to help an employee who needs it, Logan said carefully. By paying for her childcare yourself? That's not a sustainable solution, and it's not something you can extend to other employees. You know that, right? Logan did know that. He'd spent half the night wrestling with this exact problem. If he personally paid for Erica's childcare, it would look like favoritism. It would create resentment among other struggling employees. It would undermine the very systemic changes he was trying to implement. But the systemic changes would take months, and Erica needed help today. What if we created an emergency assistance fund? Logan said, thinking out loud. Company-sponsored, but available to any employee facing a crisis. Erica would be the first recipient, but not the only one. We could set clear criteria, have an application process, make it transparent. That could work, Margaret said slowly. Though you'll still need to get board approval for anything that comes out of company funds. Then I'll provide the initial funding myself, Logan decided. Personal money, not company money. Once the fund is established and proven effective, I'll propose transitioning it to corporate funding. That way, we can help Erica immediately without waiting for approval. There was a long pause. Then Margaret said, You're really serious about this, aren't you? More serious than I've been about anything in a long time. At 8:30, Logan pulled up to Erica's house again. The morning light was less forgiving than yesterday's gray rain. It highlighted every flaw in the sagging structure, every patch of peeling paint, every weed pushing through the cracked driveway. But it also illuminated a vegetable garden along the side of the house, just a small patch of earth where something green was trying to grow despite the late November cold. Someone had put effort into that garden, had planted hope in the form of seeds. Erica answered the door on the second knock, looking marginally more put together than yesterday. She wore clean jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, though the dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept any better than Logan had. Behind her, the triplets were eating breakfast at a small table, cereal in mismatched bowls, plastic cups of what looked like diluted juice. Mr. Wells. She didn't invite him in immediately, her body blocking the doorway protectively. You said 24 hours. I didn't think you'd be here at, she glanced at her watch, 8:30 in the morning. I'm early, Logan admitted. But I wanted to catch you before you made any other plans for the day. Can we talk? Erica hesitated, then stepped back to let him in. The children looked up with interest. They remembered the tall stranger in the fancy suit. Mason waved enthusiastically, sending a splash of milk onto the table. Lily offered a shy smile. Liam jumped out of his chair and ran over. Did you bring us more stuff? Liam asked with the blunt directness of a 4-year-old. Mama said you're her boss. Are you rich? You look rich. Your shoes are really shiny. Liam. Erica's face flushed red. We don't ask people about money. Remember? That's rude. But Mama, you said. Liam. Table. Now. The boy trudged back to his breakfast, looking wounded. Logan found himself smiling despite the tension. He's not wrong. My shoes are very shiny. And yes, I am rich. Though I'm learning that being rich doesn't mean much if you're not doing anything useful with it. Erica's expression shifted from embarrassment to wariness. Mr. Wells, if this is about offering me money. It's not, Logan interrupted. Not exactly. Can we sit down? I have a proposal, and I'd like you to hear me out before you decide. They moved to the living room. Logan took the same spot on the couch he'd occupied yesterday, while Erica perched on the edge of an armchair like she might need to bolt at any moment. From the kitchen, the triplets' voices drifted in, a constant background soundtrack of sibling dynamics and spilled cereal. Logan pulled out a folder from his briefcase. I've been up most of the night working on this. I want to start by saying that everything I'm about to propose is designed to respect your independence and your dignity. This isn't charity, Erica. This is me recognizing that the system failed you and trying to build something better. He opened the folder and pulled out the first document. First, your job. You're not fired. You were never going to be fired. But I'm formally changing your status to include flexible scheduling and remote work options. You'll be able to work from home when needed, adjust your hours around childcare, and take personal days without penalty. This is being rolled out company-wide over the next few months, but you'll be in the pilot program starting immediately. Erica's eyes widened. Flexible scheduling? But my department. Your department will adapt, Logan said firmly. Your manager reports to me, and I've already informed him that this is non-negotiable. You're a valuable employee, Erica. The work you do matters. But your kids matter more, and any company that can't recognize that doesn't deserve you. He pulled out the second document. Second, childcare. I've researched facilities near your home. There's a place called Bright Horizons that has immediate availability and specializes in children with medical needs like Mason's asthma. I want to tour it this afternoon, and if it meets my standards, I'd like to enroll your children there starting next week. Erica's face had gone pale. Mr. Wells, I can't afford. You're not paying for it, Logan said. Not directly. I'm establishing an emergency assistance fund for Wells Tech employees facing financial hardship. You'll be the first recipient. The fund will cover childcare costs for 6 months while you get back on your feet. After that, we can reassess. And before you argue about favoritism, this fund will be available to any employee who needs it. You're just the first. I don't understand. Erica's voice was barely above a whisper. Why would you do this? Yesterday, you didn't even know I had kids. Now you want to pay for their childcare. Logan leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Because yesterday I saw something I should have seen a long time ago. I saw that my company, my policies, my culture, was forcing good people to make impossible choices. I saw that being a good employee and being a good parent shouldn't be mutually exclusive. And I saw 3 kids who deserved better than watching their mother slowly burn out from trying to do everything alone. Tears were streaming down Erica's face now, though she seemed unaware of them. This is too much. I can't accept this. Yes, you can, Logan said gently. Not because you're weak, but because accepting help is one of the strongest things a person can do. You've been Atlas, carrying the world on your shoulders. But Atlas was a punishment, Erica. You don't have to be punished for being a parent. From the kitchen, a crash was followed by Liam's wail. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. Erica stood immediately, her mother instinct overriding everything else. Logan followed her into the kitchen, where milk and cereal covered the floor, and a sobbing Liam stood amid the wreckage, his siblings frozen in their seats. Without thinking, Logan grabbed a roll of paper towels and knelt down. Accidents happen, buddy. Let's clean this up together, okay? And there, on the sticky linoleum floor of a house in Riverside, a billionaire CEO and a 4-year-old boy mopped up spilled milk while his mother watched with tears still streaming down her face. And something fundamental shifted in the universe of Wells Tech Solutions. The Bright Horizons Early Learning Center occupied a renovated brick building that had once been an elementary school, sitting on a tree-lined street in a neighborhood that straddled the line between working-class and middle-class Indianapolis. The parking lot was freshly paved, the playground equipment looked new and well-maintained, and through the windows Logan could see colorful murals painted on interior walls. It was a world away from the cramped house in Riverside, but close enough that Erica could get there in under 10 minutes. Logan had driven separately from Erica and the triplets, giving her space to process everything he'd proposed that morning. She'd accepted, reluctantly, with a dozen stipulations and conditions, and only after he'd shown her the formal documentation for the Emergency Assistance Fund. She'd read every word 3 times, looking for the catch, the hidden strings, the moment where he'd reveal what he really wanted. Logan understood. Trust, once broken by a world that consistently let you down, didn't rebuild overnight. Now he stood in the facility's lobby with Erica and the triplets, waiting for the director. The space smelled like crayons and hand sanitizer, and the walls were covered with children's artwork, finger paintings, handprint turkeys for Thanksgiving, construction paper leaves in autumn colors. A sign near the front desk read, "Every child is capable of greatness. Our job is to help them discover it." Mason, Liam, and Lily pressed against their mother's legs, suddenly shy in this new environment. They'd been excited in the car, chattering about what they might find, but now faced with the reality of an unfamiliar place, they'd retreated into caution. Liam kept one hand fisted in Erica's sweater. Mason's eyes were wide and alert, cataloging everything like a tiny security system. Lily had her thumb in her mouth, something Erica whispered she only did when nervous. "It's okay, babies," Erica murmured, running her hands over their heads. "We're just looking today, just seeing what it's like. No pressure." But there was pressure. Logan could see it in the tension in her shoulders. This was a test, not of the facility, but of whether she could really do this, whether she could accept help, whether she could trust someone from a world that had consistently proven itself untrustworthy. "Mr. Wells? Ms. Morrison?" A woman in her mid-50s approached with a warm smile and an outstretched hand. She had gray-streaked brown hair pulled back in a practical bun, laugh lines around her eyes, and wore comfortable khakis with a colorful cardigan covered in small embroidered flowers. "I'm Susan Porter, the director. Welcome to Bright Horizons. And who do we have here?" She crouched down to the children's level, not pushing into their space, but making herself available. "I see 3 very special people. I'm going to guess, you must be Mason?" She pointed to the boy on the left, who shook his head vigorously. "No? Oh, silly me. Then you're Mason?" She pointed to Liam, who giggled and also shook his head. "Well, I give up. You're all too tricky for me." "I'm Liam," the boy announced, his shyness evaporating in the face of a game. "That's Mason, and that's Lily. We're triplets. Do you know what triplets are?" "I do indeed," Susan said solemnly. "It means you all got to be together right from the very start. That's pretty special. Would you like to see our school? We have a room just for 4-year-olds like you, with lots of toys and books, and even a turtle named Mr. Snappy." "A real turtle?" Mason asked, his caution cracking. "The realest turtle you ever saw. Come on, I'll introduce you." Susan led them through the facility with the easy confidence of someone who'd done this tour 1,000 times, but still found joy in it. The building was clean but not sterile, organized but not rigid. Each classroom had low windows so children could see out, and the furniture was child-sized and arranged in learning centers, blocks, art, dramatic play, reading. The walls displayed children's work at their eye level, not up high where adults could admire it, but kids couldn't see it. They passed classrooms where children were engaged in various activities. In one room, a group sat in a circle singing a song with hand motions. In another, kids were building with wooden blocks while a teacher sat nearby, asking questions that encouraged them to think about balance and structure. There was noise, the natural hum of children learning and playing, but it was purposeful noise, not chaos. Logan watched Erica taking it all in. Her eyes moved constantly, assessing, evaluating. She paid attention to how teachers interacted with children, whether they knelt down to their level or towered over them. She noticed the bathroom that was visible from the classroom, safety and supervision without sacrificing dignity. She saw the chart on the wall listing each child's allergies and medical needs. "We have 2 nurses on staff," Susan was saying as they walked. "Both are trained in pediatric care and emergency response. We maintain detailed health records for every child, and we're equipped to handle everything from daily medication administration to emergency interventions. You mentioned on the phone that Mason has asthma?" "Yes." Erica's hand found Mason's head, resting there protectively. "He was hospitalized in March. He uses a daily inhaler and has a rescue inhaler for flare-ups. Changes in temperature can trigger it, or physical exertion, or sometimes nothing at all. It's unpredictable. We have several children with asthma, Susan said, her tone reassuring. Our staff is trained in recognizing early signs of distress, and we maintain careful monitoring during outdoor play and physical activities. We also have a quiet room where children can rest if they're not feeling well, supervised by our nurse. Would you like to see it? The quiet room was small but soothing, painted in soft blues and greens. There were comfortable bean bags, shelves of books, and a cot for children who needed to lie down. Large windows let in natural light, and the door had a window so staff could see in without disturbing a resting child. Mason walked in and immediately went to a shelf of picture books, pulling one out and flipping through it. Liam investigated a bin of stuffed animals. Lily stood in the middle of the room, slowly turning in a circle, taking it all in. What do you think? Susan asked the children directly, not the adults. Could you see yourselves here? Is there really a turtle? Liam asked, ever focused on priorities. Susan laughed. Let me show you. Mr. Snappy turned out to be a red-eared slider living in a large aquarium in the 4-year-old classroom. A group of children crowded around the tank, watching as the turtle swam lazily through the water. The teacher, a young man with the kind of patience that can't be taught, only possessed, was explaining to the children what Mr. Snappy ate and how they could help take care of him. We believe in teaching responsibility early, Susan told Erica quietly as the triplets joined the group at the tank. Each classroom has a class pet. The children help feed them, clean their habitats, learn about their needs. It teaches empathy and care for living things. Mason loves animals, Erica said softly. We can't have pets in our rental, and I couldn't afford to care for one anyway. But he draws them constantly. Birds, dogs, cats, dragons, anything with fur or scales. Susan nodded toward Mason, who had his face pressed against the glass, completely absorbed. Children like Mason often do well in structured environments where they can channel their intensity into learning. Is he always this focused? When something interests him, yes. He can spend hours on a project. The block tower he was building when Mr. Wells first visited. He'd been working on it for 3 days, adding to it, making it better. He was devastated when it got knocked down. But he rebuilt it, Logan interjected, remembering the determined look on the boy's face. He always does, Erica said, and there was something like wonder in her voice. No matter how many times it falls, he starts over. I don't know where he gets that from. I feel like I'm always one fall away from staying down. Susan's expression grew thoughtful. May I be direct with you, Miss Morrison? Please. I've been running childcare facilities for 30 years. I've worked with hundreds of families. The parents who struggle the most aren't the ones who fall. Everyone falls. They're the ones who've been taught that falling means failure, that needing help means weakness. You have 3 beautiful, clearly loved children. They're curious, engaged, and well-behaved. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because someone has been showing up for them every single day, even when showing up felt impossible. Erica's eyes filled with tears for the second time that day. I'm so tired of falling. Then stop trying to do it alone, Susan said gently. Let us help carry some of the weight. That's what we're here for. Not to replace you. No one could do that. But to support you so you can be the mother you want to be instead of just the mother you have to be to survive. They continued the tour, but Logan could see that Erica had already made her decision. It was in the way her shoulders had dropped slightly, the way she asked more detailed questions about daily schedules and pickup procedures instead of looking for reasons to say no. It was in the way she watched her children interact with the other kids at the turtle tank, seeing a glimpse of a life they could have. After they'd seen everything, Susan led them back to her office, a small space with a desk buried under paperwork, walls covered with children's drawings, and photos of graduations spanning 3 decades. She pulled out enrollment packets and a calendar. We have 3 spaces available in our 4-year-old program, which never happens, Susan said, laying out the forms. Normally we have a waiting list 6 months long, but we had a family relocate unexpectedly. And, well, sometimes timing works out. I could have Mason, Liam, and Lily start as early as Monday if you'd like. Monday. Erica looked stricken. That's only 4 days away. I don't know if they're ready. If I'm ready. Mama. Lily had appeared at her mother's elbow, her thumb out of her mouth for the moment. I like the turtle. And the books. And that girl Sophie showed me where the dress-up clothes are. There's a princess dress. There are 3 princess dresses, actually, Susan said with a smile. One for each of you, if you want. Can we come back? Mason asked, having followed his sister. Can we see Mr. Snappy again? Liam was already climbing into Erica's lap, tired from the excitement. I'm hungry, Mama. But after lunch, can we come back? Erica looked at Logan, her expression a mixture of hope and terror. He recognized that look. It was the same one he saw in his own mirror when he was about to make a decision that would change everything. The moment before stepping off the cliff and hoping to fly instead of fall. You don't have to decide right now, Logan said quietly. Take the weekend. Think about it. Talk to the kids. See how you feel. But Susan was already shaking her head. Actually, I need to know by tomorrow afternoon. Those spots won't stay open long, and I have 3 other families waiting to hear. I don't mean to pressure you, Ms. Morrison, but that's the reality. The office fell silent except for Liam's breathing as he dozed against his mother's chest, exhausted from the morning's excitement. Erica's hand moved in slow circles on his back, an automatic gesture of comfort. Finally, she spoke. What are the hours? 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., though most families do 8 to 5. We're flexible. And if one of them gets sick, we call you immediately. We have a 24-hour exclusion policy for fever, vomiting, or contagious conditions. But for minor issues, a slight cold, a scraped knee, we handle it here. We're not looking for reasons to send children home, Ms. Morrison. We understand that parents work. Our job is to make that possible. And the cost? Erica started, then stopped, her face flushing. The cost is covered, Logan interjected firmly. We discussed this, Erica. The Emergency Assistance Fund covers 6 months of care for all 3 children. After that, we'll evaluate options. But for right now, the only question you need to answer is whether this feels like the right place for Mason, Liam, and Lily. Erica looked down at Liam sleeping in her arms, then at Mason and Lily standing beside her chair. Mason had a brochure about Mr. Snappy's species clutched in his hand. Lily was humming softly to herself, probably imagining the princess dress. It's a good place, she said finally. I can feel it. I can see it in how the teachers interact with the children, how the kids seem happy, but also learning. It's exactly what I've always wanted for them, but never thought I could afford. So, Susan asked gently. Erica took a deep breath. Monday. We'll start Monday. If, she looked at Logan, vulnerability written across her face. If the offer still stands? The offer stands, Logan confirmed. It will always stand. Susan smiled and pulled out the enrollment forms. Wonderful. Let's get the paperwork started. I'll need emergency contacts, medical history, immunization records. As Susan and Erica began working through the forms, Logan stepped out of the office to give them privacy. He found himself back in the lobby, watching through the window as children played on the outdoor playground. They ran and climbed and laughed with the unself-conscious joy that adults spent their whole lives trying to recapture. His phone buzzed, 17 new emails, 3 missed calls. The world of Wells Tech Solutions demanding his attention, pulling him back into the realm of quarterly reports and market analysis. But for the first time in his career, Logan looked at those notifications and felt nothing. No urgency. No anxiety about what disaster might be unfolding without his constant supervision. Instead, he thought about Mason's face when he saw Mr. Snappy, about Lily humming as she dreamed of princess dresses, about Liam falling asleep in his mother's arms, finally secure enough to let his guard down, about Erica's expression when she said, "It's a good place," hope breaking through the armor of exhausted cynicism. This mattered more than emails. This mattered more than meetings. This moment, this decision, this tiny shift in 3 children's lives. This was the kind of thing that actually changed the world, one family at a time. The door to Susan's office opened, and Erica emerged holding the completed paperwork. The triplets followed, Mason and Lily each holding one of their mother's hands, Liam still sleepy and clinging to her leg. They looked like a unit, a team, a family that had survived everything the world threw at them and was still standing. Monday morning, 8 o'clock. Erica said, and her voice was steadier than Logan had heard it yet. We'll be here. We'll be ready, Susan confirmed. In the parking lot, as they walked toward their separate cars, Erica stopped and turned to face Logan. The afternoon sun caught her face, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked like she might actually believe in possibility. Mr. Wells, she started, then stopped. Logan. Can I call you Logan? Mr. Wells feels too formal for someone who's seen my house and mopped up cereal with my son. Logan smiled. Logan is fine. Logan, then, I need you to understand something. I still don't completely understand why you're doing this. Part of me keeps waiting for the other shoe to drop, for this to turn into something else. But I'm choosing to trust you anyway because my kids deserve better than what I can give them alone. So thank you. And also, she paused, gathering courage. Also, please don't make me regret this. Please don't let me down. Because if this falls apart, I don't think I can survive falling again. The weight of her words settled between them. Logan thought about all the promises he'd made over the years, to investors, to board members, to business partners. Promises backed by contracts and legal agreements and the threat of consequences. This promise had none of that. This was just two people standing in a parking lot, one asking the other not to destroy the fragile hope they'd just begun to build. I won't let you down, Logan said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Not you, and not them. You have my word. Erica nodded once, then loaded her children into her battered Honda Civic, a car held together with prayer and duct tape, the back bumper secured with wire. Logan watched them drive away, the exhaust pipe coughing smoke, the brake lights flickering unreliably. He pulled out his phone and called Margaret. I need you to do something for me. Find out what it would cost to buy a reliable used car, something safe, something with good crash test ratings, something that won't break down every other week. Maybe a Toyota or Honda, 3 to 4 years old. Give me some options. For Erica? Margaret asked, though she clearly already knew the answer. Her car is dangerous. The kids ride in that thing. Logan, Margaret's voice held a warning. You can't buy her a car. That crosses so many lines. Then I'll make it a company car, Logan improvised. Part of her compensation package. Or a loan. Or, I don't care, Margaret. Just figure out how to make it work legally. Those kids deserve to be safe. This is getting complicated, Margaret observed. Good, Logan said, watching the smoke from Erica's exhaust dissipate into the November air. Sometimes complicated is exactly what's needed. The following Monday morning arrived with the kind of cold that Indianapolis specialized in. Not quite winter, but well past autumn, the kind of gray, damp chill that seeped into bones and buildings alike. Logan stood in his kitchen at 5:30 a.m., watching the coffee maker gurgle and drip while his mind churned through the day ahead. The penthouse was silent except for the hum of expensive appliances and the distant sound of traffic 40 stories below. Patricia had left for a spa weekend in Chicago 2 days ago, though Logan couldn't remember if she'd told him when she'd be back. Maybe she had. Maybe he hadn't been listening. His phone sat on the marble counter, already loaded with morning emails. But instead of opening them, Logan found himself thinking about Erica. Today was the triplets' first day at Bright Horizons. She'd texted him yesterday evening, a brief message that read, Kids are nervous. I'm terrified, but we're doing this. Thank you for believing we could. He'd read that message a dozen times, analyzing the words like they were a contract negotiation. The vulnerability in admitting she was terrified. The determination in we're doing this. The trust implied in thank you for believing. Logan poured his coffee and moved to the wall of windows that overlooked the city. From up here, Indianapolis looked peaceful, almost beautiful. The lights stretched out in geometric patterns, the streets empty enough at this hour to reveal their design. Somewhere out there in Riverside, Erica was probably awake too, maybe helping 3 nervous children pick out clothes, trying to make breakfast despite butterflies in her own stomach, attempting to project confidence she didn't feel. For reasons he couldn't fully articulate, Logan wanted to be there. Not to intrude or to hover, but just to witness this moment, the first morning of a new chapter. He wanted to see Mason's face when he walked into that classroom and found Mr. Snappy. He wanted to watch Lily discover the princess dress. He wanted to hear Liam's endless questions as he explored this new world. But that would be crossing a line. He was Erica's employer, her boss. This wasn't his family. These weren't his children. He'd provided help, significant help, but that didn't give him the right to insert himself into their private moments. Still, the penthouse felt emptier than usual. Logan finished his coffee and headed to the office, arriving before 6 a.m. The building was nearly deserted at this hour, just night security and the cleaning crew finishing their rounds. He took the private elevator to the executive floor, where Margaret had already left a stack of documents on his desk with sticky notes prioritizing what needed immediate attention. On top was a folder labeled Board Meeting, Thursday, 2 p.m. Logan opened it and found the agenda, his stomach sinking as he read through the items. Fourth quarter projections, budget allocations for next fiscal year. And there, buried in the middle, discussion of proposed organizational changes and their financial impact. Someone had leaked the Family Support Initiative. Of course they had. In a company of 800 employees, secrets lasted about as long as ice cream in August. Gerald Henderson, the board chairman and a man who'd made his fortune in manufacturing during an era when worker benefits meant not getting your hand caught in the machinery, had called an emergency meeting to address concerns about the CEO's recent decisions and their alignment with shareholder interests. Translation: they were going to try to shut him down. Logan's office phone rang at 7:15. He knew before answering that it would be Gerald. Logan. The chairman's voice had the gravelly quality of a lifetime smoker, though he'd quit years ago on doctor's orders. At 73, Gerald Henderson still came to every board meeting, still questioned every decision, still treated the company like it was 1975 and workers should be grateful just to have jobs. We need to talk about this childcare proposal. Good morning to you too, Gerald. Don't be cute. I've been getting calls from other board members. Nobody knows where this initiative came from or why you're suddenly interested in turning Wells Tech into a daycare center. You want to explain yourself? Logan leaned back in his chair, watching the sunrise paint the buildings across the street in shades of orange and pink. We're not turning into a daycare center. We're implementing policies that recognize our employees are human beings with lives outside of work. It's called retention strategy, Gerald. Maybe you've heard of it. I've heard of it, and I've also heard the price tag. $10 million for the first year alone? For what? So people can bring their kids to work? In my day. In your day, Gerald, most families had one parent staying home full-time. The economy was different. Housing costs were different. Everything was different. You can't run a 21st century company with 1970s thinking. I can't run a company into the ground with feel-good policies that don't generate return on investment, either. Gerald's voice sharpened. You're playing with shareholder money, Logan. Every dollar you spend on subsidized childcare is a dollar that doesn't go to dividends or reinvestment. The board has a fiduciary responsibility. The board has a responsibility to ensure long-term company health, Logan interrupted. And you know what damages long-term health? High turnover, burned-out employees, good people leaving because they can't balance work and family. We're spending $10 million on retention, Gerald. Do you know how much it costs to replace a skilled employee? How much productivity we lose during training? How much institutional knowledge walks out the door when someone quits? Gerald was quiet for a moment. Then, this is about that Morrison woman, isn't it? The one with all the kids. Logan's grip tightened on the phone. This is about recognizing a systemic problem and implementing a systemic solution. That's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that our CEO visited an employee's home, personally enrolled her children in an expensive daycare, and is now trying to justify it by creating company-wide policies. That's not systems thinking, Logan. That's emotional decision-making, and it's dangerous. What's dangerous, Logan said carefully, keeping his voice level, is that we had an employee, a good employee, who was one medical emergency away from losing everything. And our system didn't just fail to catch her, it actively pushed her toward the edge. That's not acceptable, Gerald. Not to me. So your solution is to spend $10 million? Have you considered that maybe, just maybe, some people's personal situations aren't the company's responsibility? That we hired them to do a job, and if they can't do that job, we find someone who can. The words landed like a slap. Logan thought about Erica's face when she talked about Mason in the hospital, about choosing between her son's ability to breathe and her ability to pay rent. He thought about 3-4-year-olds building block towers in a house that was falling apart around them. He thought about a woman who'd been treading water so long she'd forgotten what dry land felt like. You're right, Logan said quietly. We could do that. We could maintain the status quo, keep our policies exactly as they are, and when people like Erica Morrison can't hold it together anymore, we can replace them with fresh employees who haven't hit their breaking point yet. We can churn through human beings like they're disposable resources. Is that what you're suggesting? I'm suggesting that we run a business, not a social services agency. And I'm suggesting that those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Logan stood and paced to the window. Somewhere out there, 3 children were walking into a classroom for the first time, nervous and excited. Gerald, answer me honestly. When was the last time you actually talked to an employee who wasn't in management? When was the last time you asked someone about their life outside of work? That's not relevant. It's completely relevant. You're making decisions about policies that affect 800 people's lives, and you don't know anything about those lives. You're looking at spreadsheets and seeing line items. I'm looking at the same numbers and seeing families. We're both right, in a way, but only one of us is seeing the complete picture. Gerald sighed, a long exhale that carried decades of weariness. Logan, I've known you since you were a kid following your father around this building. Robert would never have approved of this. You know that. My father, Logan said slowly, died alone in a hospital room because he wouldn't admit he was having a heart attack during a business meeting. He prioritized a deal over his own life. So forgive me if I don't consider his approval the ultimate measure of success. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Gerald said, the board meets Thursday. I suggest you have your arguments ready. Because if you can't make a compelling business case for this initiative, and I mean compelling, not emotional, then we're going to have serious problems. The call ended. Logan set down the phone and stared at it for a moment, feeling the weight of what was coming. A battle. A fight for something he'd only started to understand a few days ago, but now felt vitally important. His phone buzzed with a text. Erica, drop off when okay. Mason cried, but recovered fast. Lily found the princess dress. Liam asked 12 questions before we even got to the classroom. I'm at a coffee shop. Can't make myself go home yet. Is this normal? Logan smiled and typed back. Completely normal. They call it separation anxiety, but it affects parents more than kids. You did great. 3 dots appeared, then, I don't feel like I did great. I feel like I abandoned them. You didn't abandon them. You gave them an opportunity to grow. There's a difference. How do you know? Do you have kids? Logan paused, his thumbs hovering over the keyboard. 2. Marcus is 30, Diana is 27. And if I'm being honest, I don't know them very well. I made a lot of mistakes when they were young. Still making them, probably. The response came quickly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry. You're not prying. You asked a fair question. Logan considered how much to share, then decided honesty was important. I was the kind of father who thought providing financially was the same as providing emotionally. I missed recitals and games and parent-teacher conferences because I was always working, always building, always chasing the next deal. My kids grew up in a house full of expensive things and empty rooms. So when I tell you that being there for your children matters more than anything else, I'm speaking from experience. The wrong kind of experience. A longer pause this time. Then, thank you for telling me that. I'm going to try to work from the coffee shop today. Test out this flexible scheduling thing. If that's okay. More than okay. That's exactly what it's for. Logan set down his phone and returned to his desk, pulling up the documents for Thursday's board meeting. If Gerald wanted a business case, Logan would give him one. He'd spend the next 3 days building an argument so airtight, so backed by data and research, that even the most skeptical board member would have to acknowledge the value. But first, he had something else to do. He pulled up his email and found the message from Marcus Brennan, the HR consultant. They'd been exchanging ideas about the Family Support Initiative's implementation. Logan hit reply and started typing. Marcus, I need everything you have on the business case for family-friendly workplace policies. ROI studies, retention statistics, productivity metrics, comparative analysis with competitors. If there's data that supports this initiative, I need it by Wednesday. The board is pushing back hard, and I need ammunition. The response came within minutes. Already on it. I've been expecting this. Sending over a comprehensive research packet by end of day. But Logan, be prepared. Even with data, you're fighting against decades of entrenched thinking. Some people would rather be right than effective. Logan wrote back, let them fight. I'm not backing down. The rest of Monday passed in a blur of meetings and calls, but Logan's mind kept drifting to Riverside. How were the triplets doing? Was Mason's asthma okay in the new environment? Had Lily's shyness prevented her from making friends? Were Liam's questions driving the teachers crazy or delighting them? At 3:15, his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered to find Susan Porter's warm voice on the other end. Mr. Wells? I wanted to give you an update on the Morrison children's first day. Is everything all right? Logan felt his stomach tighten with worry. Everything is wonderful, Susan assured him quickly. I'm calling because I wanted you to know what you've done here. Mason spent an hour at the art center creating the most incredible drawing of Mr. Snappy. It shows real talent, Mr. Wells. Real observational skill. Lily overcame her shyness by lunchtime and is already best friends with two other girls. They spent half the afternoon in the dress-up center putting on an elaborate production involving 3 princesses saving a kingdom. And Liam, Susan laughed. Liam has asked approximately 100 questions today. About everything. Why is the sky blue? How do turtles breathe underwater? Where does electricity come from? Our teachers are exhausted, but in the best way. Logan found himself smiling. They're settling in, then. More than settling. They're thriving. And I wanted you to know that because what you've done, giving these children access to quality early education, giving their mother the support to be the parent she wants to be. This matters, Mr. Wells. This changes trajectories. These kids were always going to be special, but now they get to discover just how special in an environment that nurtures that potential. After they hung up, Logan sat in his office as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. The city outside his window was transitioning from day to night, thousands of people heading home to families and lives he knew nothing about. Each of those lights represented someone with struggles, dreams, fears, hopes. How many Ericas were out there? How many families one crisis away from catastrophe? His phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo from Erica. 3 exhausted children asleep in the back seat of her car, still in their seat belts, mouths open and completely knocked out. The caption read, "Picked them up at 5. They made it 6 minutes into the drive home. I think it was a good day." Logan saved the photo, though he wasn't sure why. Then he went back to work on his presentation for the board, building his case brick by brick, determined to win a fight that mattered more than any merger or acquisition he'd ever pursued. Because somewhere in Indianapolis, 3 4-year-olds were dreaming about turtles and princess dresses and all the questions the world held. And Logan Wells was going to make damn sure they got the chance to find the answers. Thursday arrived with freezing rain that coated Indianapolis in a treacherous glaze of ice. Logan stood at his office window at 6 a.m., watching the city struggle to wake up beneath the assault of winter. Below, cars crept along streets with hazard lights flashing, their movements tentative and fearful. The weather had already delayed the morning rush. Schools were announcing closures. And his phone had buzzed twice with messages from board members asking if the 2 p.m. meeting would be postponed. He'd responded to each with the same message. Meeting proceeds as scheduled. Logan had spent the past 3 days preparing like he was going to trial. His office was covered in printouts, studies from MIT and Stanford on workplace flexibility, retention statistics from companies that had implemented family support programs, productivity metrics that showed a direct correlation between employee well-being and performance. Marcus Brennan had delivered a research packet so comprehensive it could have been a doctoral dissertation. Margaret had helped him organize it into a presentation that was equal parts data and storytelling. But the centerpiece of his argument wasn't in any of the research. It sat in his desk drawer, a folder containing photos he'd taken, with Erica's permission, of her house, the triplets, bright horizons. Visual evidence of what they were actually discussing. Not abstract policy decisions, but real lives. Real children. Real consequences. His phone rang at 7:30. Patricia. He almost didn't answer, but guilt won out. Logan. I'm hearing disturbing rumors about today's board meeting. His wife's voice had the clipped precision she used when discussing things that threatened her carefully maintained social standing. Gerald Henderson's wife mentioned it at the club yesterday. She said you're proposing something that could damage the company's reputation with investors. Good morning to you too, Logan said, pouring his 3rd coffee of the morning. Don't deflect. Is it true? Are you actually planning to turn Wells Tech into some sort of welfare program? Logan closed his eyes and counted to 5. I'm implementing employee benefits that will improve retention and productivity. It's called running a modern company. Patricia, maybe you've heard of the concept. Don't be condescending. Her voice sharpened. You're risking everything your father built over what? Some misguided sense of social responsibility? This isn't like you, Logan. You've always been practical, focused on results. What changed? What changed? Logan thought about that question. What changed was standing in a cramped living room watching a woman hold her world together with duct tape, and determination. What changed was seeing 3 children who smiled despite having every reason not to. What changed was realizing that success measured only in dollars was just a very expensive kind of failure. Everything changed, he said quietly. And if you can't understand that, Patricia, then maybe that tells us something important about our marriage. The silence stretched long enough that Logan thought she'd hung up. Then, are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying that I'm tired of living a life where nothing matters except appearances and profit margins. I'm saying that I looked in a mirror recently and didn't like what I saw. I'm saying that I'm trying to do something meaningful, and I need my wife to support me. Can you do that? Another pause. I don't know. I need to think. She hung up without saying goodbye. Logan set down his phone and returned to his presentation. Personal crises would have to wait. Right now, he had a battle to prepare for. By 1:45, the executive conference room was filling with board members. The space was designed to intimidate, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a table made from a single slab of walnut that cost more than most cars, leather chairs that cost more than most furniture. 12 board members filed in, each one representing millions in investment capital and decades of business experience. They weren't people who liked change, surprises, or CEOs who went rogue. Gerald Henderson sat at the far end, his expression already set in disapproval. Beside him was Martha Chun, a former CEO who'd built her reputation on ruthless efficiency. Then Richard Davenport, a hedge fund manager who measured everything in quarterly returns. Carol Williams, who owned a chain of manufacturing plants and treated labor relations like a war to be won. The list went on. Titans of industry, captains of commerce, people who'd spent lifetimes viewing employees as resources to be optimized rather than humans to be valued. Margaret slipped into the room behind Logan, taking her seat against the wall where she could observe and take notes. She gave him a slight nod, encouragement mixed with concern. Let's begin, Gerald said without preamble. We're here to discuss Logan's proposed family support initiative and its implications for company finances and operations. Logan, you have the floor. I suggest you make this convincing. Logan stood and moved to the head of the table, connecting his laptop to the room's display system. The first slide appeared, a simple title, Investment in People, the business case for family support. Thank you all for coming, especially given the weather, Logan began, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. I know this initiative has raised concerns. I know some of you think I'm making emotional decisions that contradict sound business practices. I'm here to show you why that assessment is wrong. He clicked to the next slide, showing employee turnover statistics. Last year, Wells Tech had a 23% turnover rate. Industry average is 18%. Every time an employee leaves, it costs us an average of $50,000 in recruitment, training, and lost productivity. That means we spent over $9 million last year just replacing people who quit. $9 million of completely avoidable expense. Click. A new slide showing exit interview data. According to exit interviews conducted by HR, the top 3 reasons people leave are inability to balance work and family obligations, lack of flexibility, and insufficient support for caregiving responsibilities. In other words, we're hemorrhaging talent because our policies haven't evolved past 1985. Martha Chun leaned forward. Turnover exists in every company, Logan. You can't eliminate it entirely. You're right, Logan acknowledged. But we can reduce it significantly. Look at these comparative statistics. Another slide, showing data from tech companies that had implemented family-friendly policies. Google reduced their turnover by 12% after implementing enhanced parental leave. Ernst & Young saw a 19% improvement in retention after adding flexible scheduling. Patagonia, a company that runs on-site childcare, has a turnover rate of just 4%. 4% compared to our 23. He let that sink in before continuing. The research is clear. Companies that invest in family support don't just retain employees better, they attract better employees. 87% of millennial and Gen Z workers say family-friendly policies are a deciding factor when choosing employers. We're not just fighting to keep current staff. We're fighting to attract the next generation of talent. Richard Davenport spoke up, his voice dripping with skepticism. You're cherry-picking data, Logan. Show me the actual ROI. Show me what we get back for that $10 million investment. Logan had been waiting for this question. I'm glad you asked. He clicked to a detailed financial projection. Conservative estimates show that reducing our turnover from 23 to 15% saves $4 million annually in replacement costs. Improved productivity from less stressed employees generates another $2 million in increased output. Reduced absenteeism saves approximately $1 million. Better health outcomes from lower stress levels reduce our insurance costs by roughly $800,000. That's $7.8 million in measurable returns in the first year alone. And that's before factoring in recruitment advantages and improved company reputation. You're making assumptions, Carol Williams interjected. You're assuming all these benefits will materialize exactly as projected. You're right, I am making assumptions. But they're informed assumptions based on real data from real companies. Logan advanced to the next slide, showing case studies. Here's what happened when Accenture implemented flexible scheduling. Productivity increased by 14% within 6 months. Here's what happened when Johnson & Johnson added on-site childcare. Employee satisfaction scores jumped 32%, and their retention of working mothers improved by 50%. The data isn't theoretical, it's historical fact. Gerald cleared his throat. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, Logan. This isn't really about company-wide policy, is it? This is about one specific employee, Erica Morrison. You visited her home, personally arranged childcare for her children, and now you're trying to justify those actions by creating company-wide policies. That's backwards thinking, and it's dangerous. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to Logan. This was the moment. The accusation he'd known was coming. He could deflect, could focus purely on business arguments, could try to separate Erica's situation from the larger initiative. Instead, he did something riskier. He told the truth. You're absolutely right, Gerald. Logan's admission clearly surprised the chairman. I did visit Erica Morrison's home. I did see her situation firsthand. And yes, what I saw there influenced this proposal. You want to know what I found? He clicked to a new slide. A photo he'd taken of Erica's street, showing the modest homes, the worn facades, the lived-in reality of working-class Indianapolis. I found a 36-year-old woman who's worked for this company for 8 years, who never missed a deadline, never caused drama, never asked for special treatment, who was so dedicated to her job that she hid the fact she had triplets because she didn't want it to affect how we viewed her professional competence. Next slide. The cramped living room, the space heater, the secondhand furniture. I found a house that's falling apart because every dollar she makes goes to keeping her children fed and safe. I found a space heater fighting a losing battle against winter because she can't afford proper heating. I found a car held together with wire because she can't afford repairs. He clicked again. The photo of Mason, Liam, and Lily building their block tower. And I found 3 4-year-old children who are bright, curious, and full of potential. Children who deserve every opportunity to succeed. Children whose mother was burning herself to ash trying to give them a future. Logan turned away from the screen to face the board directly. You asked if this is about one employee, Gerald. It is. But it's also about how many other Ericas we have in this building. How many people are one medical emergency away from disaster? How many are making impossible choices between their jobs and their families? How many are slowly drowning, too proud or too scared to ask for help? He moved back to his laptop, pulling up a new series of slides. So I had HR run an anonymous survey last week. I asked employees about their biggest workplace challenges. The results are illuminating. The statistics filled the screen. 42% reported that childcare costs were a significant financial burden. 37% said they'd missed work due to family obligations they couldn't resolve any other way. 53% said they'd consider leaving for a company with better family support. 28% admitted to coming to work sick because they'd used all their time off caring for family members. These aren't hypotheticals, Logan said quietly. These are our people, our employees, the humans who make this company function. And we're failing them. Martha Chen shifted in her seat. Even if we accept your premise, Logan, $10 million is a substantial investment. What if it doesn't work? What if employees take advantage of the flexibility? What if productivity drops instead of improving? Then we adjust, Logan said simply. We monitor, we measure, we modify. But doing nothing is not an option. Not anymore. Because I've seen what nothing looks like. And it's a woman having a breakdown in her kitchen because she doesn't know how to choose between her children and her livelihood. That's what our current system produces, and I'm not willing to accept that as the cost of doing business. He clicked to his final slide, which showed just 4 words. Profit without people is empty. My father built this company on the principle that success meant maximum return for shareholders. And he was successful by that measure. He left us a profitable, stable enterprise. But he also died alone, having sacrificed every relationship in his life on the altar of business growth. He prioritized deals over his own health, meetings over his family, profit over people. And I'm not willing to keep following that blueprint. Logan's voice grew stronger. I'm proposing a different measure of success. One where we're profitable and our employees can afford childcare. Where we generate returns and our people don't have to choose between a paycheck and taking care of their sick kids. Where we build shareholder value and we build a company culture worth working for. He closed his laptop. So yes, this will cost $10 million. Yes, it's a risk. Yes, it's changing how we've always done things. But I've looked at the alternative, at what happens when we don't change, and that cost is higher than any dollar amount. That cost is measured in lives diminished, potential wasted, and families destroyed. And I'm not willing to pay it anymore. The silence that followed was profound. Board members exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from thoughtful to hostile. Gerald sat back in his chair, his face unreadable. Martha Chen tapped her pen against her notepad. Richard Davenport pulled up something on his tablet, double-checking Logan's numbers. Finally, Gerald spoke. You've given us a lot to consider, Logan. I move that we table this discussion until the next quarterly meeting, giving us time to review the data more thoroughly and— No. Logan's voice cut through the room like a blade. With all due respect, Gerald, we're not tabling this. We're voting on it today. Erica Morrison's children started at Bright Horizons on Monday. They're thriving there. And I'll be damned if I'm going to yank that security away while we spend 3 months debating spreadsheets. This board will approve the Family Support Initiative today, or I will implement it anyway and let you try to stop me. That's not how corporate governance works, Carol Williams said sharply. The board has oversight. The board has oversight, Logan agreed. But I'm the CEO, and I have operational authority. I can reallocate budgets, adjust spending priorities, and implement new programs within my scope of authority. Would it be easier with board approval? Absolutely. But I don't need it to start making changes. So let's be clear about what we're really discussing here. Are you going to support this initiative, or are you going to fight me every step of the way? Gerald's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Logan, you're overstepping. I'm doing my job, Logan shot back. I'm making decisions that improve this company's long-term health and competitiveness. That's exactly what you hired me to do. The only question is whether you trust me enough to let me do it. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Margaret looked like she might be holding her breath. The board members sat frozen, clearly unprepared for their usually compliant CEO to draw such a hard line in the sand. Then, surprisingly, Martha Chen spoke. I want to hear from the CFO. What's your assessment of the financial viability here? David Kim, the chief financial officer who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, stood and moved to the table. At 45, he'd been with Wells Tech for a decade, respected for his conservative approach and analytical mind. I've reviewed Logan's numbers extensively. They're sound. The ROI projections are actually conservative. They don't account for several additional benefits like improved innovation from diverse perspectives or enhanced company reputation among consumers who value corporate responsibility. From a purely financial standpoint, this is a smart investment with manageable risk. Manageable risk, Richard Davenport repeated. But still risk. All growth involves risk, David countered. The question is whether the potential return justifies it. In this case, I believe it does. I support the initiative. More silence. Then Martha Chen said, I'd like to propose a modification. We approve the initiative as a 2-year pilot program. We establish clear metrics for success, retention rates, productivity measures, employee satisfaction scores. At the end of 2 years, we evaluate the results and decide whether to continue, modify, or discontinue. Does that address the concerns about accountability? Logan considered. It wasn't everything he wanted. 2 years felt like keeping the initiative on probation, subject to cancellation if the numbers didn't immediately justify it. But it was better than a flat rejection. I can accept that, provided the metrics we establish are reasonable and the evaluation is conducted fairly. Agreed, Martha said. She looked around the table. I move that we approve the Family Support Initiative as a 2-year pilot program with quarterly progress reports and a comprehensive evaluation at the end of the trial period. All in favor. 5 hands went up immediately. Then 3 more. Then 2 more. 10 out of 12 board members supporting the motion. Gerald Henderson sat with his hand firmly down, his expression somewhere between fury and disbelief. Beside him, Carol Williams also kept her hand down, though she looked less angry than simply unconvinced. Motion passes, Martha Chen announced. Congratulations, Logan. You've got your pilot program. Don't make us regret it. The meeting adjourned in a flurry of shuffling papers and mumbled conversations. Board members filed out, some offering Logan congratulatory handshakes, others studiously avoiding eye contact. Gerald left without a word, though the slam of the conference room door spoke volumes. Margaret waited until the room had cleared before approaching Logan. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen you do or the most reckless. Possibly both. Logan collapsed into a chair, suddenly aware of how exhausted he was. Did we win? You won the battle, Margaret said carefully. But Gerald isn't going to forget this. Neither is Carol. You've made enemies today, Logan. I know. Logan pulled out his phone and found the photo Erica had sent. 3 exhausted children asleep in car seats. But I also did the right thing. That has to count for something. It does, Margaret agreed softly. It absolutely does. Logan typed out a message to Erica. Board approved the Family Support Initiative. It's happening. For real. Her response came quickly. I don't know what to say. Thank you feels inadequate. Then say nothing, Logan wrote back. Just keep being the incredible mother you are. That's thanks enough. He sent the message and stood, gathering his materials. Outside the windows, the freezing rain had stopped, and weak afternoon sunlight was breaking through the clouds. The city sparkled under its coating of ice, dangerous and beautiful at the same time. Logan had just risked his reputation, his relationships with half the board, and possibly his marriage, all for a policy that might not even work. It was reckless. It was risky. It was completely unlike the careful, calculated businessman he'd spent his career being. And for the first time in decades, Logan Wells felt like he was finally doing something that actually mattered. 3 weeks passed in a blur of implementation meetings, policy revisions, and carefully monitored progress reports. Logan found himself spending less time in his executive office and more time in the trenches of actual company operations, visiting departments, talking to employees, listening to concerns and suggestions about the Family Support Initiative. It was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure, like learning to run his own company all over again from a completely different perspective. The changes were already visible. HR had established the Emergency Assistance Fund with clear application criteria and a review committee. Facilities had begun renovating space on the 2nd floor for the on-site child care center, slated to open in February. Department managers were attending training sessions on flexible scheduling and remote work management. The company intranet had a new portal where employees could access resources about benefits, work-life balance, and family support services. But not everything was smooth. Some managers resisted the changes, viewing flexible scheduling as an excuse for reduced productivity. A few employees without children grumbled about special treatment for parents. There were logistical headaches around scheduling, communication gaps, and the inevitable growing pains that came with organizational change. Marcus Brennan had warned Logan this would happen. Culture change was messy, uncomfortable, and slow. Still, there were victories. Small ones, but meaningful. A software engineer named Tom had used flexible scheduling to care for his elderly mother during chemotherapy treatments, allowing him to keep working instead of taking unpaid leave. A marketing coordinator named Aisha had applied for the emergency fund when her car broke down, receiving a short-term loan that kept her from spiraling into debt. Stories were trickling in, quiet testimonials about how these changes were affecting real lives in real ways. And then there was Erica. Logan hadn't seen her since the day of the board meeting, though they'd exchanged occasional texts. She'd been working from home mostly, settling the triplets into their routine at Bright Horizons, finding her footing in this new reality where she wasn't constantly drowning. But she was scheduled to come into the office this Friday for a team meeting, her first in-person appearance in months. Thursday evening, Logan was working late when his phone rang. Unknown number again. but this time from a different area code. He almost let it go to voicemail, but something made him answer. Mr. Wells. The voice was male, unfamiliar, with a slight southern drawl. This is Ryan Morrison. I understand you've been helping out with my kids. Logan's hand tightened on the phone. Ryan Morrison, the father who'd abandoned Erica when he found out about triplets. The man who'd never met his own children. How did you get this number? Wasn't hard. You're kind of famous, you know. CEO of a big company. Your name all over the internet. Ryan's tone carried an edge Logan couldn't quite identify. Was it hostility? Calculation? I've been hearing some interesting things. Something about you paying for my kids' daycare. Taking a real personal interest in their situation. What do you want? Logan kept his voice carefully neutral, though his mind was racing. How had Ryan found out? Who had told him? Just want to understand what's going on. I mean, it's generous and all, some rich guy swooping in to help out. But it makes a man wonder, you know? What exactly is your relationship with Erica? The insinuation was clear, and it made Logan's blood boil. I'm her employer. I'm implementing company policies to support employees with families. That's the extent of it. Sure. Company policies. Ryan laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Funny how these company policies seem real specific to Erica's situation, though. Real convenient timing. Get to the point, Logan said flatly. The point is, those are my kids too. I got rights. And if there's money being thrown around for their care, seems like I should have a say in where they go, what they do. Maybe I want to be part of their lives now. Now, Logan couldn't keep the disgust from his voice. They're 4 years old, and you've never once tried to contact them. You abandoned their mother when she was pregnant. You've paid exactly $0 in child support despite a court order. And now what? You smell money and suddenly want to play father. Watch yourself. Ryan's voice turned hard. You don't know anything about my situation. About why I left. You don't get to judge me. You're right. I don't know your situation. But I know what you did, and I know what Eric has been dealing with because of it. So whatever you're planning, whatever angle you're working, I suggest you think very carefully before you disrupt those children's lives. Is that a threat? It's a statement of fact. Erica has full legal custody. You signed away your parental rights. You have no claim here. Actually, Ryan said slowly, I never signed anything giving up my rights. I just left. There's a difference. And any lawyer will tell you that a father can petition for custody or visitation at any time, especially if he can demonstrate that he's now in a position to provide for his children, especially if there are questions about their current living situation. Logan's stomach dropped. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe I want to meet my kids. Maybe I want to establish a relationship. And maybe if someone tries to stop me, say, some rich CEO who's gotten a little too involved in a situation that's none of his business, well, that could get complicated. For everyone. The threat was clear. Ryan was suggesting he'd fight for custody or visitation, not because he actually wanted his children, but as leverage. To extract money. To cause problems. To exploit the situation for personal gain. How much? Logan asked quietly. Excuse me. How much money do you want to go away and leave them alone? Ryan laughed again, and this time it sounded genuine. See, I knew you'd get it. Rich guys always understand deals. Let me think about it. I'll be in touch. The line went dead. Logan sat in his office, staring at the phone, his mind spinning through scenarios. Could Ryan actually get custody? Probably not. He'd abandoned the children, never paid support, had no relationship with them. But he could cause chaos. He could file motions, demand visitation, drag Erica through a legal nightmare she couldn't afford. He could use the triplets as pawns in whatever game he was playing. And it was Logan's fault. His involvement had put a spotlight on Erica's situation. The news coverage of the Family Support Initiative, positive stories in the Indianapolis Star and the business press, had mentioned a single mother with triplets as the inspiration. They hadn't used Erica's name, but apparently someone had connected the dots. Maybe a former coworker. Maybe someone from her neighborhood. However it had happened, Ryan had found out, and now he smelled opportunity. Logan picked up his phone and called Marcus Brennan. We have a problem, he said when the consultant answered. A big one. After explaining the situation, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, this is exactly what I was worried about. When you help one person publicly, it attracts attention. Not always the good kind. I know that now. What do I do? First, you tell Erica immediately. She needs to know what's coming. Second, You get her connected with a family law attorney, a good one. Third, you step back. Way back. Because if this turns into a custody fight, your involvement will only make things worse. Ryan's already implying there's something inappropriate about your relationship with Erica. Don't give him ammunition. I can't just abandon her to deal with this alone. You're not abandoning her. You're providing resources and support, then letting her handle her own situation with professional help. There's a difference, Logan. And you need to learn it, because this is the downside of playing savior. Sometimes your help creates new problems. The words stung because they were true. Logan had charged in with good intentions and deep pockets, never considering that his involvement might have consequences beyond the immediate situation. He'd been so focused on fixing Erica's problems that he hadn't thought about what new problems he might create. He called Erica immediately. She answered on the third ring, sounding tired. In the background, Logan could hear the triplets, bath time, from the sound of the splashing and giggles. Logan, is everything okay? No, he said simply. Ryan called me. He knows about the daycare, about the family support initiative. He's making noises about wanting to be involved in the kids' lives. The silence on the other end was absolute. Even the background noise seemed to stop, as if Erica had frozen in place. Erica, he called you. Her voice was barely a whisper. How did he even? Why would he? I don't know how he found out. But he's suggesting he might file for custody or visitation. I think he wants money to go away, but I'm not sure. Either way, you need to be prepared. Oh God. Erica's breathing had gone shallow. Oh God. He can't. They don't even know him. They've never met him. He can't just. Erica, listen to me. I'm going to connect you with the best family law attorney in Indianapolis. Someone who specializes in custody cases. We'll handle this. Her voice sharpened. Logan, this is my problem. My life. It's my problem too, Logan interrupted. Because my involvement probably triggered this. I put you in the spotlight without considering the consequences. So yes, I'm not leaving you to fight this alone. I can't afford a family law attorney. I can barely afford. The Emergency Assistance Fund covers legal fees for family matters. That's literally what it's for. Erica, please, let me help fix this. He heard her take a shaky breath. Then another. In the background, one of the triplets called out. Mama, Liam's splashing me. I have to go, Erica said. The kids. I need to. I can't think about this right now. Tomorrow, Logan said firmly. Meet me for coffee before your team meeting. 8 a.m. I'll have the attorney's information and we'll make a plan. Okay, she whispered and hung up. Logan sat in his silent office, watching the city lights blur as unexpected tears filled his eyes. He'd wanted to help. He'd wanted to make things better. Instead, he'd potentially made everything worse. The man who'd built an empire on strategic thinking and calculated decisions had charged into a situation with pure emotion and created collateral damage he hadn't anticipated. His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. I've made a decision about us. We need to talk. Can you come home? Logan stared at the message, feeling the weight of multiple crises converging. His marriage, Erica's situation, the board's skepticism, the company transformation, Ryan's threats. It was all too much, too fast, too complicated. But there was no going back now. He typed back to Patricia, I'll be there in an hour. Then he opened his laptop and began researching family law attorneys, looking for someone who could fight as hard for Erica and her children as Logan had fought for the family support initiative. Because Marcus Brennan was right, Logan needed to step back from Erica's personal life. But he could still provide resources. He could still make sure she had the best possible support. Even if that meant accepting that sometimes, trying to be a hero just made you part of the problem. The penthouse was dark when Logan arrived, lit only by the ambient glow of the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. Patricia sat on the white leather sofa, still dressed from whatever event she'd attended, probably a fundraiser or gallery opening. She'd poured herself a glass of wine but hadn't touched it. You're late, she said without looking at him. You said we needed to talk. I'm here. Patricia finally turned to face him, and Logan was startled to see that she'd been crying. Patricia never cried. She was perfectly composed at all times, a skill learned from generations of old money breeding where emotions were considered vulgar. I've been thinking about what you said, she began. About our marriage. About what matters. About how I don't support you. She took a shaky breath. You were right. We've been strangers living in the same house for years. Maybe longer. I can't even remember the last time we had a real conversation. Logan sat down in the chair across from her, maintaining distance. Patricia, let me finish. Her voice was firm despite the tears. I went to visit your employee today, Erica Morrison. I wanted to see for myself what had changed you so dramatically. Logan's blood ran cold. You what? I drove to Riverside. I sat in my car outside her house for 20 minutes, trying to understand. Then she came home with 3 small children, and I watched her struggle to get them out of that terrible car, watched her carry 2 of them while the third walked beside her holding her purse. I watched her stop at the mailbox and go through bills with this expression on her face, like she was bracing herself for another blow. And I realized something. Patricia met Logan's eyes directly. She has nothing, Logan. Nothing except those children and whatever scraps of dignity she's managed to hold on to. And still, I watched her laugh at something one of the kids said. I watched her kiss the top of their heads and hold the door open like she was welcoming them to a palace instead of that tiny, falling-apart house. She has nothing, but somehow she has everything that matters. Why are you telling me this? Logan asked quietly. Because I'm jealous, Patricia said simply. I'm jealous of a woman who lives in poverty and drives a car held together with wire. I'm jealous because her children look at her like she hung the moon, and our children barely return my calls. I'm jealous because you've spent more emotional energy on her situation in 3 weeks than you've spent on our marriage in 3 years. And the worst part is, I understand why. She stood and walked to the window, her silhouette sharp against the city lights. I've been thinking about our life together. Really thinking. And I can't remember the last time anything felt real. Our conversations are about schedules and appearances. Our social circle is people we don't even like. Our children are strangers. Our marriage is a business arrangement that stopped being profitable years ago. What are you saying? Logan's voice was barely audible. Patricia turned back to face him. I'm saying I want a divorce. Not because I hate you, I don't. But because we both deserve a chance to find something real before it's too late. You've already started. You've found something worth fighting for, something that makes you feel alive. I want that too, Logan. I want to matter to someone. I want to have conversations that aren't about who we're supposed to be seen with. I want to feel something other than this constant emptiness. The words should have devastated Logan, but instead he felt a strange sense of relief. Like a weight he'd been carrying for decades had finally been acknowledged and could be set down. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Say you understand. Say we can do this without destroying each other. Patricia wiped her eyes, her composure returning. Say we can be honest for once in our lives about what this marriage really is and isn't. Logan stood and moved to stand beside her at the window. Below, the city sparkled and hummed. Millions of people living their complicated, messy, real lives. Somewhere out there, Erica was putting 3 children to bed, probably worrying about Ryan's reappearance. Somewhere, his own adult children were living their lives without needing or wanting his presence. Somewhere, the world kept turning regardless of what happened in this penthouse. I understand, Logan said finally. And yes, we can be honest. Our marriage has been over for a long time. We were just too comfortable, or too scared, to admit it. Patricia nodded, a sad smile touching her lips. I'll have my attorney draw up papers. We can keep it simple, dignified. No drama. We're too old for drama. Agreed. They stood together in silence for a moment. 2 people who'd spent 25 years together but had never really known each other, finally acknowledging the truth. For what it's worth, Patricia said softly, I think what you're doing with your company, the Family Support Initiative, I think it's good. Important. Your father would have hated it, but I think it's the best thing you've ever done. Thank you, Logan said, surprised by how much that acknowledgement meant. Patricia finished her wine and set down the glass. I'm going to go stay at the club for a while. Give us both some space. We can work out the details through our attorneys. Patricia, Logan caught her arm as she moved past. I'm sorry. For all the ways I failed you. For all the years I was more married to my work than to you. You deserved better. She patted his hand gently. We both did. But maybe it's not too late to find it. After she left, Logan stood alone in the penthouse that had never felt like home, looking out at a city full of people whose lives were infinitely more complicated and infinitely more real than the sterile existence he'd constructed for himself. His phone buzzed. A text from Erica. I can't sleep. Keep thinking about Ryan showing up. About him wanting to take them away. I know you said we'd make a plan, but I'm terrified. Logan typed back, tomorrow morning. Coffee. We'll figure this out. You're not alone in this. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, why are you doing this? Really? What do you get out of helping us? It was a fair question. What did he get out of it? His marriage was ending. His board was watching him with suspicion. His entire life was being turned upside down. He'd gone from being a focused, successful CEO to being, what? Someone who cared? Someone who got involved? Someone who made mistakes driven by good intentions? He thought about Mason's determined focus on rebuilding his block tower, about Lily's careful consideration of each piece, about Liam's endless questions, about Erica's exhausted face when she'd said, I'm so tired of falling. Logan typed, I get to be part of something that matters. For the first time in a long time, I get to matter. That's more valuable than you know. The response came quickly. You matter to us. I hope you know that. Logan saved the message, just like he'd saved the photo of the sleeping triplets in the car. Then he poured himself a drink and sat in the darkness, contemplating the ruins of his old life and the uncertain shape of whatever was coming next. Tomorrow he'd meet with Erica. Tomorrow he'd face whatever chaos Ryan Morrison was preparing to unleash. Tomorrow he'd continue the transformation of Wells Tech and navigate the minefield of board politics and cultural change. But tonight, for just a moment, Logan allowed himself to feel something he hadn't felt in decades. Hope that doing the right thing, even when it was messy and complicated and created new problems, was still worth doing. Even if, especially if, it cost him everything he'd thought mattered. The coffee shop where Logan met Erica the next morning was a far cry from the upscale cafes near his office with their $12 lattes and minimalist design. This place, Java Joe's, sat on a corner in Broad Ripple, a neighborhood that balanced artsy charm with working-class practicality. The walls were covered with local artwork for sale, the mismatched furniture looked rescued from estate sales, and the coffee came in actual mugs instead of disposable cups. It smelled like espresso and cinnamon rolls, and every table was occupied by people working on laptops or having intense conversations over steaming drinks. Logan arrived first, ordering 2 coffees, black for himself, a latte for Erica based on what he'd seen her drink at the office. He chose a table in the back corner where they could talk privately and pulled out the folder he'd prepared. Inside were contact details for 3 family law attorneys he'd vetted personally, each one known for aggressive advocacy in custody cases. He'd also included a summary of Indiana custody law, information about Ryan's legal standing given his abandonment and failure to pay support, and a draft plan for how to handle things if Ryan actually followed through on his threats. Erica arrived 10 minutes late, looking like she'd aged another decade overnight. Her eyes were red-rimmed and puffy, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore yoga pants and an oversized Indiana University sweatshirt that had seen better days. She carried a purse that was literally held together with safety pins in one corner. I'm sorry I'm late, she said, collapsing into the chair across from him. Mason woke up with a cough at 5 a.m., and I couldn't tell if it was serious enough to keep him home or if I was just being paranoid. I finally decided to send him anyway, but then Lily couldn't find her favorite shoes and had a complete meltdown, and she stopped, pressing her hands to her face. I'm rambling. I do that when I'm stressed. It's okay. Logan pushed the latte toward her. Take a breath. Erica wrapped both hands around the mug like it was a lifeline. I didn't sleep at all last night. I kept having this nightmare where Ryan showed up at Bright Horizons and just took them, just loaded them into a car and drove away, and I couldn't stop him because legally I didn't have the right to. Her voice cracked. I know that's not how it works. I know custody doesn't work that way, but logic doesn't help at 3 in the morning when you're lying in the dark terrified. Logan opened the folder and slid it across the table. I want you to call Jennifer Hartwell first. She's at the top of the list. I spoke with her yesterday evening. Just preliminary questions, nothing specific to your case, and I trust her. She's tough, experienced, and she specializes in cases where one parent has been absent. She's handled situations like yours before. Erica flipped through the documents, her expression shifting from exhaustion to something closer to overwhelm. Logan, I can't afford. Emergency Assistance Fund. Logan interrupted gently. Legal fees for family matters are explicitly covered. I made sure of that when we established the criteria. This is exactly what it's for, Erica. Please don't fight me on this. I'm not fighting you. She set down the papers and looked at him directly. I'm trying to understand why you care so much. You've already done more for us than anyone in my entire life. You've given my kids opportunities one never dreamed were possible. You've changed my whole situation. And now you're what? Taking on my legal battles too? When does it end, Logan? When do you get tired of fixing my life? The question hung between them, heavy with vulnerability and fear. Logan realized that Erica wasn't just worried about Ryan. She was worried about dependency, about becoming someone who needed saving, about losing the fierce independence that had kept her afloat for 4 years. I'm not trying to fix your life, Logan said carefully. I'm trying to provide resources so you can fix your own life in the way that makes sense to you. There's a difference. You're the one who decides what to do about Ryan. You're the one who meets with attorneys and makes legal decisions. You're the one raising your children and navigating their needs. I'm removing obstacles, making it possible for you to have choices instead of just surviving crisis to crisis. Erica was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee. I met your wife yesterday, she said finally. Logan's heart sank. She told me. I'm sorry if that was uncomfortable or... It wasn't uncomfortable. It was strange. Erica looked up, her expression thoughtful. She didn't come to the door, just sat in her car watching us for a while, then drove away. But I saw her, and I saw her car, and her clothes, and the way she looked at my house like it was something from another planet. And I realized something. What? You and I are from completely different worlds, Logan. Different universes, really. I worry about making rent and whether I can afford the name brand cereal. You worry about, I don't even know what you worry about. Board meetings and stock prices and whatever rich people stress over. And somehow our lives have gotten tangled together in this way that doesn't make sense. That can't possibly be sustainable. Logan felt something cold settle in his chest. Are you saying you want me to back off? I'm saying I don't know what I'm saying. Erica laughed, a sound close to tears. I'm saying I'm terrified of 2 things simultaneously. That you'll disappear and take all this support with you. And that you won't disappear and I'll become so dependent on you that I'll forget how to stand on my own. Both options scare me equally. Then let me tell you what I'm saying. Logan leaned forward, his voice intense. I'm saying I'm not going anywhere. I'm saying this isn't some temporary interest that I'll lose when the novelty wears off. I'm saying that what started as me trying to understand why an employee was missing work has become... He stopped, searching for the right words. It's become important to me. You're important to me. Mason, Lily, and Liam are important to me. Not as a project or a charity case, but as people I genuinely care about. Why? Erica's eyes were filling with tears. We're nothing to you. You're not nothing, Logan interrupted fiercely. You're the woman who rebuilt her entire life after it fell apart, who kept showing up for her children even when showing up felt impossible. You're 3 kids who smile despite having every reason not to, who build block towers and ask questions and draw pictures of turtles. You're what I was missing in my life without even knowing it was missing. You're what made me realize that everything I thought mattered actually didn't matter at all. The words hung in the air between them, raw and honest. Around them, Java Joe's continued its morning bustle, orders being called, milk being steamed, conversations flowing. But at their corner table, time seemed suspended. My marriage is ending, Logan said quietly. Patricia asked for a divorce last night. We've been strangers for years, but we were finally honest about it. And you want to know what I felt? Relief. Because pretending to have something real when it's actually hollow, that's exhausting. Being around you and your kids, seeing actual love and actual sacrifice and actual connection. It made me realize how empty my life has been. Erica wiped her eyes with a napkin. I'm sorry about your marriage. Don't be. It's been over for a long time. We were just too comfortable to admit it. Logan paused, then decided to risk complete honesty. You asked me why I care so much. The truth is, I don't completely understand it myself. But I know that when I'm around you and your kids, I feel like I matter for who I am, not what I can provide. Liam doesn't care that I'm a CEO. He just wants someone to answer his questions. Mason doesn't care about my bank account. He just wants to show me his drawings. Lily doesn't care about my reputation. She just wants someone to watch her color. And you've never asked me for anything. Every bit of help I've offered, you've resisted. That's not dependency, Erica. That's you being strong enough to admit you can't do everything alone. I feel like I'm drowning again, Erica whispered. But this time it's not from having too little. It's from having too much change too fast. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Logan reached across the table and, after a moment's hesitation, took her hand. It was small and calloused, with short, practical nails and a healing cut on one knuckle. But you don't have to process it all at once. Right now, all you need to do is call Jennifer Hartwell and make an appointment. Deal with Ryan first. Everything else can wait. Erica squeezed his hand briefly, then pulled back, wrapping both arms around herself. Okay, I'll call her today. But Logan, if this gets messy, if Ryan really pushes for custody or makes this into a public thing, you need to step back. You need to protect yourself and your company. I won't let you destroy everything you've built because of me. That's not your decision to make. Yes, it is, Erica said firmly, and for the first time that morning, Logan saw a flash of the strength that had kept her going for 4 years. I won't be responsible for damaging your reputation or your business. I won't. So promise me, if this blows up, you'll distance yourself from my situation. Promise me, Logan. He wanted to argue, to insist that he'd never abandon her. But looking at her face, exhausted, frightened, but absolutely determined, Logan realized that she needed this promise. She needed to know that her problems wouldn't destroy him, that accepting help wouldn't come at the cost of his ruin. I promise, he said finally. If the situation becomes damaging to the company or the initiative, I'll step back from your personal situation. But I won't stop the family support initiative, Erica. Too many other people need it now. Fair enough. She checked her watch and stood. I need to go. Team meeting in 30 minutes. And I'm supposed to present our Q4 projections. God knows how I'm going to focus on spreadsheets when my brain is stuck on custody laws and lawyers. You'll do fine. You always do. Erica gathered her things, then paused. Logan, thank you. For the coffee. For the attorney referrals. For everything. I'm terrible at accepting help, but I'm trying to get better at it. That's all I ask. After she left, Logan sat alone with his coffee, watching the morning crowd come and go. His phone buzzed with incoming messages. Margaret asking about his schedule, the CFO requesting a budget meeting, a board member wanting to discuss concerns. The machinery of corporate life demanding his attention, pulling him back into the world of decisions and consequences. But his mind was on Erica, walking into that team meeting carrying the weight of everything happening in her life. On 3 children at Bright Horizons, building with blocks and asking questions, unaware that their biological father was circling like a shark. On the promise he'd just made to step back if necessary, even though every instinct screamed at him to fight. His phone rang. Jennifer Hartwell, the family law attorney. Mr. Wells? Erica Morrison just called. I'm meeting with her Monday morning. I wanted to give you a heads up. This situation is complicated. Ryan Morrison does have some legal standing as the biological father, despite his absence. The fact that he never formally terminated his parental rights means he could potentially file for custody or visitation. Logan's stomach dropped. What are the chances he'd win? Slim, given the circumstances. But family court is unpredictable, and judges sometimes favor biological connections over stability. The fact that Ms. Morrison's living situation has recently improved, thanks to your assistance, could actually work against her. Ryan could argue that she was unable to provide adequate care until a wealthy benefactor stepped in, and that such an unstable support system isn't in the children's best interest. That's insane. Her situation improved because she got the support she deserved, not because. I know. Jennifer interrupted gently. But family court isn't always rational. It's emotional, subjective, and every judge has their own biases. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it so you understand what we're facing. This could get ugly, Mr. Wells. And when it does, your involvement will be scrutinized. Every decision you've made, every dollar you've spent, every interaction you've had with Ms. Morrison, it all becomes potential ammunition. Are you suggesting I shouldn't help her? I'm suggesting you be very careful about how you help her. Document everything. Make sure all assistance goes through official company channels. Maintain appropriate professional boundaries. Because if Ryan's attorney is smart, and we should assume they will be, they'll try to paint your relationship with Ms. Morrison as inappropriate, possibly even suggesting that you're using your wealth and position to exert undue influence. After the call ended, Logan sat in Java Joe's feeling the walls closing in. He'd tried to do the right thing, to help someone who desperately needed it, to implement policies that would support all his employees, to be the kind of leader who cared about more than just profits. And now it was all being twisted into something ugly, something that could potentially hurt the very people he'd been trying to help. His phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from an address he didn't recognize. The subject line read, "We need to talk, Ryan Morrison." Logan's hand trembled slightly as he opened it. "Mr. Wells, I think we got off on the wrong foot yesterday. I'm not trying to cause problems. I'm just a father who wants to know his kids. But I understand this is complicated. Maybe we could meet face to face? Talk this through like reasonable people? I'm in Indianapolis through the weekend. Let me know. Ryan." It was a trap. Logan knew it was a trap. Jennifer Hartwell had just finished warning him about maintaining boundaries, about not giving Ryan ammunition. Meeting with him privately, without Erica or attorneys present, was exactly the kind of mistake that could blow up spectacularly. But there was a small possibility, vanishingly small, but still present, that Ryan was being genuine. That he really did want to meet his children, not for money or leverage, but because 4 years later he'd grown up and realized what he'd lost. People could change. Logan himself was proof of that. Logan typed back, "I'll meet with you. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Java Joe's on College Avenue. Bring identification. I want to verify you are who you claim to be." And Ryan? "If this is a shakedown, you should know that I have excellent attorneys and zero tolerance for anyone who tries to use children as bargaining chips." He hit send before he could second-guess himself, then immediately called Jennifer Hartwell back. "I just did something potentially stupid," he admitted. "I'm meeting with Ryan Morrison tomorrow morning." There was a long pause. Then Jennifer sighed. "Well, you're definitely not boring, Mr. Wells. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm attending that meeting with you. Not as your attorney, as a witness. Everything that's said needs to be documented and verifiable. Understood? Understood. And Mr. Wells, don't make any promises. Don't offer any money. Don't say anything that could be construed as trying to bribe or influence him. Just listen. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Good. Because if you can't, you're about to make everything infinitely worse for Ms. Morrison and those children. And I don't think you want that on your conscience." Logan ended the call and sat in the coffee shop, surrounded by the sounds of ordinary people living ordinary lives, and wondered at what point his attempt to help had become so catastrophically complicated. He'd been so certain he was doing the right thing. Now he wasn't certain of anything except that tomorrow morning, he'd come face to face with the man who'd abandoned Erica and their children, and somehow he'd have to find a way to protect them without making everything worse. Outside Java Joe's windows, Indianapolis went about its business under gray November skies. Somewhere across the city, Erica was sitting in a conference room presenting spreadsheets while her world teetered on the edge of chaos. Somewhere, 3-4-year-olds were learning about colors and numbers, building with blocks, asking questions, completely unaware that their lives might be about to change in ways they couldn't possibly understand. And Logan Wells, who'd started this journey with a simple question about why an employee was missing work, prepared himself for a confrontation that could either resolve everything or destroy it all. The storm that had been building for weeks was finally about to break. He just hoped they'd all survive it. Saturday morning arrived cold and clear, the kind of winter day where the sky stretched impossibly blue above a city still shaking off the week's freezing rain. Logan arrived at Java Joe's 45 minutes early, unable to sleep past 5 a.m. despite his exhaustion. Jennifer Hartwell was already there, positioned at a table near the window with a clear view of the entrance. She was younger than Logan expected, maybe 40, with shoulder-length auburn hair, sharp green eyes behind rimless glasses, and the kind of focused intensity that successful trial attorneys cultivated like a weapon. "You're nervous," she observed as Logan sat down with his coffee. "I'm meeting a man who abandoned 3 children and is now potentially trying to exploit them for money." "Yes, I'm nervous." "Good. Nervous means you'll be careful." Jennifer pulled out a small recording device and set it on the table. "Indiana is a one-party consent state, which means I can legally record this conversation as long as one participant, me, knows about it. If things go sideways, we'll have documentation." "You think they'll go sideways?" "I think a man who vanished when he found out about triplets and suddenly reappears for years later when money's involved is not someone whose intentions I trust." Jennifer's expression was calm but hard. "But I've been surprised before. People sometimes grow up, develop consciences, realize their mistakes. It's rare, but it happens. At 9:55, a man entered the coffee shop who could only be Ryan Morrison. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with the kind of build that came from physical labor rather than gym memberships. His brown hair was shaggy and touched with premature gray at the temples, and he wore work boots, faded jeans, and a Carhartt jacket that had seen better days. He had Mason's eyes, that same intense focus, and Lily's nose. The resemblance was unmistakable and unsettling. Ryan spotted Logan immediately and approached with a cautious confidence, like a man used to being unwelcome but determined to hold his ground anyway. Up close, Logan could see more details: calloused hands, a small scar above his left eyebrow, laugh lines that suggested he smiled more than his current situation warranted. "Mr. Wells." Ryan extended his hand. Logan shook it briefly, noting the firm grip and the way Ryan's eyes flicked to Jennifer with immediate wariness. "This is Jennifer Hartwell," Logan said. "She's here as a witness to our conversation." "A witness?" Ryan's jaw tightened. So we're already at that point? Attorneys and legal maneuvering. We're at the point where a man who abandoned his pregnant girlfriend and 3 unborn children suddenly reappears claiming parental interest, Jennifer said calmly. "So yes, Mr. Morrison, we're at that point. Please sit down." Ryan hesitated, then pulled out a chair and sat. He ordered coffee when the server came by, black, no sugar, and spent a long moment staring at his hands before speaking. "I know what this looks like," he started. "I know what I am in this story. The deadbeat dad, the coward who ran. And you're right. That's exactly what I was. But it's not what I want to be anymore." "Convenient timing," Jennifer observed. "Right when Ms. Morrison's situation improves." Ryan's head snapped up, his eyes flashing with anger. Then, with visible effort, he controlled it. "Yeah, I know how it looks. But the truth is, I found out about the daycare and the help Erica was getting because I've been checking in on her. Not in person. I knew that would just cause problems. But I have a friend who still lives in Riverside. She's been keeping me updated for about a year now, sending me pictures sometimes of the kids." He pulled out his phone and scrolled through photos, then turned the screen to show Logan and Jennifer. There were pictures of the triplets playing in Erica's yard, blurry and taken from a distance. Mason concentrating on something off camera. Lily in the pink dress that was too small. Liam riding that tricycle. The photos were dated. Logan could see the progression over months, the subtle changes as the children grew. "I've been watching from afar," Ryan continued, his voice rough with emotion. "Seeing them grow up in pictures, knowing I had no right to be part of their lives after what I did. But seeing them, God, they look so much like my dad. He died when I was 12, and I see him in their faces, and it just..." He stopped, pressing his palm against his eyes. Logan wanted to maintain his anger, his protective fury, but something about Ryan's grief felt genuine. Still, genuine regret didn't erase 4 years of absence. "Why did you leave?" Logan asked. "When Erica told you about the triplets, why did you run?" Ryan lowered his hand, his eyes red but clear. "Because I was 28 years old, working construction job to job, barely making rent on a studio apartment, and suddenly I was going to be responsible for 3 babies. Not 1, 3. And Erica was so confident, so sure we'd figure it out. And I panicked. I thought about my own childhood, about being poor, about watching my mom work 3 jobs and still not being able to keep the lights on. I thought about passing that life on to 3 innocent kids, and I couldn't handle it." "So you abandoned them to that life anyway," Jennifer pointed out. "Without support, without help. How is that better?" "It's not." Ryan's voice cracked. "It's not better at all. It's the worst thing I've ever done. But at the time, in my messed up head, I thought Erica would be better off without me dragging her down. I thought maybe she'd meet someone else, someone who could actually provide for them. I thought I was doing the right thing by getting out of the way." "And the child support?" Logan pressed. "The court order you ignored?" "I couldn't pay it." Ryan's hands clenched into fists on the table. "The first year I tried. I sent what I could, but it was never enough, never consistent. Then I got injured on a job site, fell off a roof, messed up my back. Couldn't work for 6 months. Lost my apartment, ended up basically homeless for a while. By the time I got back on my feet, the arrears were so massive I couldn't see any way to pay them. So I just gave up, kept moving state to state, working under the table, telling myself it didn't matter because I wasn't part of their lives anyway. But something changed, Jennifer said. A year ago, you said. What happened? Ryan was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. I met someone. Her name is Angela. She's a teacher in Louisville. That's where I've been living for the past 18 months. She has a daughter from a previous marriage, and watching her with that kid, seeing what real parenting looks like, it destroyed me. Because I realized I had 3 children out there that I'd never met, never held, never tucked into bed or bandaged their scraped knees or any of it. And Angela, she asked me about them one day. Just casual. Do you have any kids? And I said no. I lied right to her face. And that night, I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about how I'd just erased Mason, Liam, and Lily from existence because it was easier than admitting what I'd done. He pulled out his wallet and extracted a worn photo, creased and faded, clearly carried for years. It was a sonogram image of 3 tiny forms. This is the only picture I kept. From the ultrasound where we found out it was triplets. Erica was holding my hand so tight, I thought she might break my fingers, and she was crying and laughing at the same time. She looked at me and said, "We're going to need a bigger apartment." And I looked at this picture, and all I felt was terror. Ryan set the photo on the table between them. I've been carrying this for 4 years, torturing myself with what I threw away. Angela finally told me I had to deal with it. Either make peace with my decision to stay away, or do something about it. She said living in this limbo, this guilty distance, wasn't fair to anyone, especially not to the kids. So you decided to show up and claim parental rights, Jennifer said, her tone still skeptical. After 4 years of nothing. No. Ryan looked up, meeting her eyes directly. I decided to show up and ask Erica if there was any possible way I could be part of their lives. Not as a dad. I know I haven't earned that. But maybe as someone who shows up. Someone who pays support. Someone who doesn't pretend they don't exist. Logan studied Ryan's face, looking for deception, for calculation. All he saw was exhaustion and regret, and a desperate kind of hope. You called me 2 days ago and threatened to file for custody. That doesn't sound like someone who just wants to help. Ryan winced. Yeah, I handled that wrong. Really wrong. I was angry. I'd been building up the courage to reach out to Erica for months. And then I see news articles about this big corporate initiative. And there's a description that's obviously her situation. And suddenly, there's this rich CEO playing hero with my kids. My kids that I've been agonizing over for a year, trying to figure out how to make amends for. And I lashed out. Tried to convince myself I had some kind of claim, some kind of right to be territorial about it. You don't, Jennifer said flatly. Legally, you have very limited standing. You abandoned them, failed to provide support, showed no interest in their welfare. No judge would grant you custody, and visitation would be an uphill battle. I know. Ryan's shoulders slumped. My sister's a paralegal. She already told me I don't have a case. That's not why I'm here. Then why are you here? Logan asked. Ryan took a deep breath. I'm here to ask you to convince Erica to meet with me. Just once. I know I don't deserve it. I know she has every right to slam the door in my face. But I need her to know that I'm sorry. That I've been working on myself, getting therapy, dealing with my issues. That I have a stable job now, a steady income, a life that's not falling apart. I need her to know that I want to pay child support. Real support, reliable support. That I've been putting money aside for months, waiting for the right time to reach out. He pulled out a bank statement and slid it across the table. It showed regular deposits over the past 8 months, building to a balance of just over $12,000. It's not enough to make up for 4 years. It'll never be enough. But it's a start. And I want to set up a formal arrangement, through the courts, legal and binding. I want to pay what I owe and keep paying going forward. Jennifer examined the statement carefully, her expression unreadable. This doesn't change the past, Mr. Morrison. I know, but maybe it can change the future. For them, if not for me. Ryan looked at Logan directly. I'm not asking to disrupt their lives. I'm not asking for weekends or holidays or any of that. I'm just asking for the chance to stop being a ghost. To be someone who shows up, even if it's just financially. To maybe, someday, if Erica allows it, meet them. Let them know I exist. That I'm sorry. That they weren't unwanted. I was just too broken to be what they needed. The coffee shop hummed around them with Saturday morning activity. Families with young children. College students studying. Couples on dates. Normal people living normal lives while three adults sat at a corner table negotiating the fate of three children who had no idea this conversation was happening. Logan thought about Erica's face when she talked about falling, about being tired of fighting alone. He thought about the fear in her voice when Ryan first called, the terror of losing her children. He thought about Mason's determination, Lily's carefulness, Liam's curiosity. He thought about what it would mean to them to know their father wanted to be part of their lives, not to take them away, but to support them from a distance. "I can't promise Erica will agree to meet you," Logan said finally. "That's her decision, and hers alone. But I'll talk to her. I'll tell her what you've said here. And then it's up to her. That's all I'm asking." Ryan's relief was palpable. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet," Logan warned. "Because if this is a con, if you're playing some kind of angle, if you do anything to hurt those kids or their mother, I will use every resource I have to make your life very difficult. Do you understand?" "I understand." Ryan stood, leaving the bank statement on the table. "That money's for them, regardless of what Erica decides. I'll set up a transfer to her account if she gives me the details. And Mr. Wells, thank you for what you've done for them, for giving them chances I couldn't. I mean that." After Ryan left, Logan and Jennifer sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, the attorney spoke. "Well, that wasn't what I expected." "Do you believe him?" Logan asked. "I believe he believes what he's saying. Whether he can follow through, that remains to be seen." Jennifer gathered her things. "But the bank statement is real, and his emotion seemed genuine. People do sometimes grow up and make amends. The question is whether Erica can forgive him enough to allow it." Logan called Erica that afternoon. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight with anxiety. "How bad is it? Should I be looking for a custody attorney? Should I?" "Erica, stop," Logan interrupted gently. "It's not what we thought. Ryan doesn't want custody. He wants to apologize." The silence on the other end was absolute. "Then what?" Logan spent 20 minutes recounting the conversation, every detail he could remember. He described Ryan's photos, the bank statement, the genuine remorse. He didn't editorialize or interpret. He just gave her the facts and let her process them. When he finished, Erica's breathing was shaky. "I don't know what to do with this. I've spent 4 years being angry at him. For years telling myself he was a monster who didn't care. And now you're saying he does care? That he's been watching from a distance? That he wants to help?" "I'm saying he claims he wants to help. Whether you believe him or trust him, that's your call, Erica. Nobody else's." "Do you believe him?" Logan considered the question carefully. "I think he's telling the truth as he understands it. I think he genuinely regrets what he did. But I also think regret doesn't erase absence, and good intentions don't automatically make someone trustworthy. If you decide to meet with him, do it on your terms, in your time, with Jennifer Hartwell present. Protect yourself first. I need to think about this. Take all the time you need." "Logan." Erica's voice was small. "Thank you. For meeting with him. For being there. For everything. Always," Logan said simply. 3 days later, on a Tuesday afternoon, Logan stood in the lobby of Bright Horizons watching through the window as Erica's car pulled into the parking lot. Ryan Morrison sat in the passenger seat, his expression a mixture of terror and anticipation. Jennifer Hartwell followed in her own car, there to witness and document, but also to provide legal protection if needed. Susan Porter had agreed to facilitate this meeting, understanding the delicacy of the situation. She'd set aside a private room away from the classrooms where the children wouldn't accidentally encounter Ryan before Erica was ready. The plan was simple. Ryan and Erica would talk first, with Jennifer present. If, and only if, Erica felt comfortable, they would consider introducing Ryan to the children. But that decision was entirely hers. Logan wasn't supposed to be here. Erica had insisted he didn't need to come, that this was her situation to handle. But he'd come anyway, staying in the lobby, just in case. Just to be available if she needed him. Through the window, he watched Erica and Ryan sit in the car for several minutes, talking. He couldn't hear the words, but he could see the body language. Erica rigid with tension, Ryan's hands moving as he explained or apologized or pleaded. At one point, Erica buried her face in her hands. Ryan reached out as if to touch her shoulder, then thought better of it, his hand falling back to his lap. Finally, they got out of the car. Erica walked ahead, her arms wrapped around herself protectively. Ryan followed at a careful distance, like he was approaching a wild animal he didn't want to spook. Jennifer brought up the rear, her expression professionally neutral. Mr. Wells. Susan appeared at Logan's elbow. You should go. Your presence will only complicate things. Ms. Morrison needs to do this without feeling like she has an audience. I know. I'm leaving. But Logan didn't move, watching as Erica disappeared into the building, Ryan and Jennifer following. You care about her, Susan observed. It wasn't a question. I care about all of them. There's caring about employees, and then there's this. Susan's voice was gentle. Be careful, Mr. Wells. The line between helping and becoming entangled can blur very easily. Logan finally tore his gaze from the window. I think that line blurred a long time ago. He left before he could change his mind, driving back to his office where a mountain of work awaited. The Family Support Initiative was in full swing now. The child care center construction was ahead of schedule. 3 more employees had accessed the emergency fund. Flexible scheduling was being piloted in 5 departments. The metrics were actually showing improvement. Retention was up, absenteeism was down, employee satisfaction scores had jumped 12 points in 1 month. But Logan couldn't focus on any of it. His mind was in that private room at Bright Horizons, where a woman who'd been abandoned was sitting across from the man who'd abandoned her, trying to figure out if forgiveness was possible. Where 3 children played in another room, unaware that their family structure might be about to shift in fundamental ways. His phone rang at 4:30. Erica, it's done, she said, her voice exhausted but steady. We talked for 2 hours. He apologized. I cried. He cried. Jennifer documented everything. And we agreed. He's going to pay child support. Real, regular support through the courts. In 6 months, if he's proven reliable, I'll consider letting him meet the kids. But not before. I need to know he's not going to disappear again. That sounds reasonable. He also said he wanted to thank you. For taking care of us when he couldn't. For being there when he wasn't. Erica laughed, a sound that was half sob. He said you're a better man than he was. And you know what? He's right. You've been more of a father figure to my kids in a few weeks than he ever was in 4 years. Erica. No, let me finish. I need to say this. You changed our lives, Logan. Not just with money or daycare or flexible scheduling. You changed them by seeing us. By caring. By showing up. Mason asks about you all the time. When is Mr. Logan coming to see his block towers? Lily drew you a picture that's on my refrigerator. Liam wants to know if you'll come answer questions about his favorite topic this week, which is currently dinosaurs. Logan felt his throat tighten. I'd be honored to discuss dinosaurs with Liam. Come to dinner this week. Thursday night. Nothing fancy. I'm making spaghetti and there will be 3 4-year-olds demanding attention the entire time. But I want you to see what you've done for us. I want you to be part of our family, not just as my boss or benefactor, but as, she paused, searching for words, as someone who matters to us the way we matter to you. I'll be there, Logan said, his voice rough with emotion. After they hung up, Logan sat in his office as the sun set over Indianapolis, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. His desk was still covered with work, his calendar still packed with meetings, his life still complicated by board politics and corporate maneuvering and the messy process of divorce. But none of that felt as important as Thursday night dinner with a woman and 3 children who taught him what actually mattered. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, his adult son. Dad, heard about the divorce. Are you okay? Want to grab lunch next week? Logan stared at the message, surprised. Marcus hadn't initiated contact in over a year. Maybe word of his father's transformation was spreading. Maybe people were noticing that Logan Wells had changed. He typed back, lunch sounds great. And yes, I'm okay. Better than I've been in years, actually. Then he opened his calendar and blocked out Thursday evening. Dinner with Erica and the kids. He marked it as high priority, non-negotiable, the kind of commitment that nothing, not board meetings, not investor calls, not corporate emergencies, would be allowed to supersede. Because Logan Wells had spent 52 years prioritizing all the wrong things. He'd built an empire while missing what made life worth living. He'd accumulated wealth while remaining emotionally bankrupt. He'd succeeded by every traditional measure while failing at the things that actually mattered. But standing in that cramped living room in Riverside, watching 3 children build block towers and a mother hold her world together through sheer force of will, something had shifted. The scales had fallen from his eyes, and he'd seen clearly for the first time in decades. Success wasn't a number on a balance sheet. It wasn't a corner office or a name on a building. It wasn't recognition or awards or the approval of people who didn't really know you. Success was Mason's concentrated focus as he carefully placed each block. It was Lily's quiet consideration as she chose just the right color. It was Liam's endless questions about how the world worked. It was Erica's fierce love for her children despite having every reason to give up. Success was showing up, being present, caring about people not for what they could do for you, but for who they were. It was using privilege and resources not to accumulate more, but to lift others up. It was 3-4-year-olds who didn't care about quarterly earnings or stock prices or board approval, but just wanted someone to watch them play, answer their questions, and show up when they said they would. Logan Wells had knocked on a door in Riverside expecting to find answers about an absent employee. What he'd found instead was a mirror showing him who he'd become and who he could still be. He'd found a family that wasn't his by blood, but had somehow become his by choice. He'd found a purpose that transcended profit margins. And on Thursday night, he'd sit on that worn carpet in that small house and eat spaghetti with 3 children who'd taught him more about success in a few weeks than 50 years in corporate America ever had. The sun disappeared below the horizon, and Indianapolis lit up with thousands of lights, each one representing a life, a story, a family navigating their own struggles and triumphs. Logan looked out at that sea of lights and understood, finally, that he was just one small part of an infinitely complex web of human connection. But he was a part of it now, not above it, not separate from it, but woven into it through 3-4-year-olds and their mother who'd let him into their lives despite having every reason to keep the walls up. Logan Wells shut down his computer, gathered his things, and headed home to his empty penthouse. But it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like a transition space, a way station between who he'd been and who he was becoming. And for the first time in his entire life, Logan Wells was excited about the future. Not because of what he would build or achieve or accumulate, but because of the people he'd get to know, the lives he'd get to be part of, and the difference he might, just might, be able to make in a world that desperately needed more people to show up and care. One family at a time, one person at a time, one small act of genuine human connection at a time. Starting with spaghetti dinner on Thursday night. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and if you watched all the way to here, comment, "I watched all the way through," and leave your opinion about this story. Oh, and don't forget to watch the next video that appears on the end screen. It's really exciting.